Let's see if this thing updates. This is what we're looking for, right? This to update.
No, you just hit start streaming.
I did.
Yeah. So I think we're good, actually. Yeah. I mean, there's. Let me check.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're there. Look at it.
Boom.
Look at it. Thumbnail. So fast. Super fast. So quick.
What up? What up?
I'm gonna make sure everything sounds good.
Can I be greedy and get the thing where I see all the lines?
The lines?
The graph.
Oh yeah.
Is that like your user tracking?
Yeah, I just get to see like concurrent viewers and stuff like that.
That's
That's
something
good.
to figure out. It's like not doing it.
Huh.
Yeah, it like wants to. Here, let me do this. Here's what I think. When I hit go live again, it should just work. There it is. That's the one.
There we go.
33 already. Goodness gracious.
Wow.
Dang, you are a popular man.
What's your normative count? What do you get normally?
Well, we really only do the form review live streams. Can I just pull this down?
You can't. Look, ready?
Oh, there's no more.
Look at this.
Well, that's better.
There you go.
In my mind.
Oh, bro, I got you.
Catching cabbage. My cabbages. All right.
There you go.
What is up? What is up? We're going to let some people in here first. Yeah, so we've only done so far like form stuff. We've had like over 100 people sometimes for that. So It's a lot. It's kind of crazy. Say something again, John.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Okay, yeah. I heard you before. I just want to make sure. Cool. Yeah, there's usually like a little graph over here, and I can see people on or not on.
Get some user comments.
Can you see our chat or no?
No, I just see you and the mic.
No worries. I'll do my best to navigate this, but it's nice because I'm not on the controls today, boys. Somebody's reviewing my form. So I'll go ahead and we'll get you introduced to your brother. John, well, everybody, this is John. John runs a channel.
Hello.
Aceitdiscgolf. And Aceit is from basics to baskets.
Well done. Yep.
Yeah.
You got it.
So, what is up, Sweden? Yeah, it's kind of crazy where people tune in from. So, have you done anything live yet?
No, I haven't.
No, it's just your modules.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you guys don't know, this is John from Aceitdiscgolf, and he is another coach who is all of your videos so far are on the technical side of the game, right?
Yeah, so far.
All backhand form thus far.
Yep.
So are you planning on expanding past form, or are you just kind of a technical coach?
Yeah, I think past form soon-ish. So, people will see, even to the last video, I just did a recap of my own form development where, my background was relatively recent in disc golf. I started as one of the pandemic boom, and it was like the story you're hearing from a lot of people where I was down in the doldrums and I had a friend who'd been playing for 14 years say, hey, do you want to come try disc golf? Start out in the dead of winter, horrible, as you'd expect, I can't throw 50 feet. And I just, whatever it is about disc golf just keeps hitting you and you keep coming back for more. And so, the brief story to that was I got into it by that summer because, of course, like everybody, I'm trying to throw farther, but I have no idea how. I don't know how to do field work. And I started getting hurt. And so in my case, the first resource I became familiar with was Seabass. So shout out to him. And he's been giving me a lot of coaching very actively since late October. And so you'll kind of see, I guess, in our conversation today, I've got a lot of stylistic similarity to how he thinks about form. And he's taken me a really long way in just 6 months. So, I've got the sort of OCPD, I'll put in all the work to keep doing something every day. At this point, he's got me to a much better distance. But for me, it was more important to not get hurt and reduce effort, which I think we'll talk a lot about today in your form as well, because I think you've got a lot of good stuff going on the effort, safety end.
Yeah, and I think probably a lot of our viewers are a lot of our channel kind of overlap. Like you're just kind of the typical, well, not typical, but you're very similar to a lot of kind of the overthrow subscriber base. Not the fact that they're all coaches, because they're not, but that we've got a lot of people who sit down and will iron out the form and will get after it day after day after day, and sometimes to their detriment. And we've had kind of conversations on that. But yeah, grinding it out again. Seabass, your mentor. I've been having conversations with Seabass. You guys don't know, but John and I have been talking a lot more, and I've been talking to Andrew or Seabass a bit more as well. And it took me a while when I first got into the disc golf scene. I saw Seabass, and I knew about him, and I just knew the sheer volume of work that he put out. Because even when we started, he had already had like 200 videos or something crazy out there, and he's been teaching for, I don't know, probably what do you say, probably 10 or 11 years, huh?
Yeah, I think so.
Or he was kind of learning, I guess, 10 or 11 years ago, and he's been teaching for probably 8 or 9, I guess.
Yeah,
something around there. So and if we had to put kind of Seabass over here on the like technical coaching side, and then we've got me kind of over here maybe on the field coaching side, you're somewhere probably closer to the technical than the field, but you're certainly not all technical. And there's room for all of them. I'm not saying this is a slight at anybody, of course, but there's a lot of different coaches, and a lot of people respond better to either a technical or a field-based coach or some kind of mix. So yeah. I recommend your stuff to a bunch of my students too. If I feel like they're a little more technical minded, I'll explain things, and I'll be like, hey, check out this video. This guy might be someone that you want to look at.
Demonstrate real fast.
Yeah, testing.
Move.
Oh, fancy.
That the audio levels are catching.
Yeah.
It looks like. Check a couple out. Good.
No.
Wireless go is not a go.
Yeah, wireless go is not a go.
It says.
That's why. Where are you? You see it? There it is. Boom. Okay, test. Test it, Josh.
Test. It's certainly doing something.
Got it.
Boom. Now, my only question is, if I come back here, is it catching both?
No.
Okay. Sick.
So fancy. Look at you guys. Full service.
It's all Mikey. It's all Mikey. I just say, here's what we're doing. Can it happen?
Yeah, and he wizards it out, yeah.
And then he does it. Jeremy says, just jumped in. Did you mention Bradley Walker? We did not mention Bradley Walker. Did not mention him.
Yeah,
I don't know if there's anything to mention there.
Yeah.
So you can
certainly.
if you want to be more specific, he definitely had a strong following, and I think that a lot of people benefited from his teaching. Now, whether or not all of it was solid or not solid, I don't really know that much, honestly. But is that a topic we delve into here? Maybe not. But I guess the question might have come up because in our like UDisc thing that Alex, the editor for UDisc, wrote, I had mentioned kind of the history of my coming into coaching, which was like, I was like, man, this isn't like a straight pull across like that, like I'd been seeing. This is like a swing. And so I just like did a quick peripheral study on if anybody else had done it. I saw, another channel, Spin and Throw, was teaching it. I was like, okay, cool. I'm not the only one. So for good or for bad, that's what happened. So yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I have an unfortunately deep amount of knowledge about what happened on those forums where you'll see Seabass post as Sidewinder 22. And there are a lot of old archival conversations, including Bradley Walker, on some of these like controversies in forum. So I'm not going to purport to be expert on like that dilemma as it emerged. But yeah, I encourage people, if they're really interested, to check that out at some point.
Yeah. And I didn't even go, and Seabass sent me some stuff, and I didn't even go all the way into depth and all that, but he pointed me in the direction of the historicity of it all.
Yeah.
So I could be kind of knowledgeable, since I, used his name in the interview. So I think Seabass was just, looking out for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I wanted to say too, since you mentioned like this spectrum of coaching, like the first thing is like, I do think I have some, positions or beliefs about what I would say is fundamental in form from my own experience in reading. But I don't think that the path to getting there is going to be the same between any two people. And I mean, I've seen enough form critiques now, and like, I'm a case where I had zero throwing experience of any kind. I'm not very athletic. I've got some martial arts and dance background, but it feels nothing like anything I've learned in disc golf form until like a lot of development. Like then I can start to see, oh, like that's kind of like this waltz move, or oh, that's like this move in karate or whatever. But I think that just like when you're getting any teacher, matching to a style is really important. In my case, it really helped with Seabass's style on the mechanics, because one, that's just, I'm an academic by day trade. Like, so that's just how I think. I like mechanics and thinking about them. I like thinking about cause and effect. But in the end, you got to find things that get your body to do it and to reproduce it. So I think, Josh is a fair characterization. I'm kind of in the middle where I want to know how it works to the best I can. By the stage of my form development, I'm really interested in like, okay, like what's the best way to get my body to do this over and over, consistent, whatever that is. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was going to point out, if you guys wanted to know what kind of coach he is, you could just look at all the diplomas in the background there. He's a professor.
We'll
He's a professor of neuroscience, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
So here's the thing is,
yeah,
I've got the gist of what you're a professor of.
Yeah.
And it was probably really off the mark of what you actually are a professor of. So it was probably
That's
technically
fine.
inaccurate.
Oh,
but
that's fine.
That's like how I am as a coach. It's like I've got some image of like does something with brains, and he teaches about how the brain works.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you got the gist, right? So
Yep.
that's fair.
So what is it actually?
Yeah. So I do three things. I mostly do research. So I have an active research lab, and I like to zap the brain. I like to measure brain networks to figure out what they do when I zap them. And then I think about the ethics of all that. So that's in a nutshell what my career is about.
You say the ethics of all that?
Yeah. So
the
once
ethics
I start
of zapping brains.
Exactly. So once I come in,
I've already formed some opinions on that.
I know you have. Everybody does, right? I've written papers with mind control in the title just to like steer into controversies, right? So
yeah.
That's where I go.
Yeah. So that's John, and that's how he understands things, and then he communicates it. You saw immediately, where he takes the Matt says, "Where do I sign up to get zapped?"
Hey, you can come over to Drexel University, and we have established protocols. So
there we go, Drexel University, and you could get zapped in the brain as safely as possible.
Yes, safety. That's important to say. You'll see in my form thinking and in my science, it is literally always safety first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But your coaching is you understood. Okay, what do I actually do for neuroscience? And then you open up with, I do 3 things, and you bring 3 basic points. I zap the brain. I evaluate what happens when I zap it, and I focus on the ethics of it.
Yeah.
And it's like, then you bring it down to, that's what a coach does. It's like, I don't need to know exactly what you do, but just simple stuff. So that kind of perfectly is a microcosm of your coaching. You understand and you go into depth in all of the intellectual things, and probably more depth than I will ever go. Like, I would never go after the degree that you had to get to do what you're doing right now.
Hey, there are pros for your mental and physical health there. So
yeah,
more power to you.
yeah. So yeah. Let's see. Yeah. One thing that we kind of talked about that I wanted to delve in just for a minute is, like, we're both working through our form.
Yeah.
Right. And so we're both studying what actually happens. Right. And then there's a reason, if you think about it, like, as coaches, we can explain a lot of the like actual reality, what happens types of things, if we want to, and we can understand it. And then you have players who are on the total opposite end of the spectrum. So if the spectrum was like, here's coaches, intellectual, somewhere over off camera would be feel based, and that would be pros. Right? And so you've got, and usually in order to get good form, you have to get to feel based.
Yeah.
Which is really, really, really hard for coaches usually.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are very few coaches, if you come out of industries where someone was a really good player first and then they go into coaching, they're probably never going to be a great coach. And then you have people who will be a great coach that will probably never be a great player. Yeah. Because it's hard to bridge the gap or go where you need to go. It's hard for someone who has felt and so intuitive on all the aspects of a disc golf swing, where they might say one thing and might feel one thing, and then they have to go explain it to someone. We have a video coming out tomorrow with Christine Jennings, where I was talking to her, and she was telling me about Bart, her boyfriend. He's a, Discmania crusher. And she's like, I asked him how to do it, and he just says, I don't know, I just curl my wrist and then I throw it. And she's like, that doesn't help.
Yeah.
That doesn't help me.
We've all encountered those tips.
Like
Yeah.
Like, she would probably make a good coach one day if she wanted to, because she's kind of intellectual in her grasping and working through her form. But it's tough, and that's why we're here today, is because, one, coaches have a hard time seeing their own form and seeing the issues, plus getting out of the intellectual aspect of it and getting into the feel aspect, which ultimately is what you have to do with any form piece. You say, here's what it is, here's the box drill, and it's robotic, and, let's smooth it out. And eventually you're actually breaking the back end of the box, blah, blah, blah. And, eventually you just swing it into the pocket instead of, like, making this happen unnaturally.
Yeah.
And so you have to get there.
Yeah.
But, so here we are.
Well, and I think to kind of just mark on that where I am, I was sharing this by text with Josh a little bit earlier. Like, I've gotten to this point where, I'll workaholic this just like I would my day job, right? So, like, I'm doing something every day, and we've talked a bit about your body just can only take so much. 10 or 20 years ago, mine could take more than it can now. And so I kind of got to a point within the last week or two where mechanically I can have somebody like Seabass look at my form, and it's like, wow, like, the components are working well at this point, but I don't have the consistency, and it's not gelled and as smooth as it like to be. Right. And so I had this day, Sunday, where I thought I had rested enough, not feeling great that morning. I'm on a bomber course. So of course I'm trying to rein it in, but I want to throw farther. And I just couldn't pull it together that day. And I realized after that day, I was like, well, like, my weight doesn't feel good. Like, my body is achy. You know, my off arm's kind of flailing around because it's still confused about old things it used to do, trying to compensate for weaknesses. So, you know, one thing I think we'll mention a little bit is just expectations. And so for now, today, I just decided I'm going to shut down for probably the better part of 2 weeks. I've got some things I can do, drills on the side, just to kind of improve the consistency and flow. But like Josh saying, that's about feeling at this point, because I know what it feels like to move fluidly and powerfully without a lot of effort. I just have to keep repeating that over and over. So the next time I pick up a disc, it's going to be easier than last time. And that has been the case 100% of the time. So sometimes people wonder about like, why am I doing all these drills without a disc? You're programming your brain and your body just to do it over and over and over. And that's going to kind of scaffold over time.
Yeah. And, you know, John asked me, how far are you throwing roughly? And, you know, he asked me some preliminary questions, and I haven't recorded, and I'm like a nut job about telling students to record and see their form, because in the beginning, your mind's so oblivious. Once you get this thing in your hand, your mind loses all awareness of what your body's doing. Yeah. The only thing it cares about is disc go far.
Yeah.
That's like,
right.
Disc go far?
Yeah.
Ooh, good form. Disc no go far. Need better form.
Yeah.
You know, and then you don't even like video it. So I'm a nut about recording so that you're cognizant and aware, so that you can, you know, have that mirror and see that. But I haven't recorded. Today was the first time when I sent John over the clips. It was the first time that I recorded myself in probably months. Because I'm at the stage right now where I understand what I need to do. I'm shadow swinging these things every single day in lessons. And like I've run through no disc drills more than, 90-something% of people. But now it's just time to trust that I'm not going to translate all the mechanics from the drills. It's not going to happen. But my body is very fluid, and muscles and tissue and all of that. It's not so rigid. And the way that your body does things is very fluid. So I'm just in the stage right now where, we're probably going to look at my form, and I didn't even look at it. I just sent it to John. I didn't even look at it. And honestly, I know that there are going to be issues, and I don't really care that much, because that's not the stage that I'm on right now. Right now, I'm working on a few key things and feeling the rest of it. So, expectations, timelines, things like that is you just got to wait. Same thing happened to me in tennis. I could teach people to hit a one-hand backhand, and but my one-hand backhand was absolutely garbage for a while. And then I stopped playing so much, and I just started teaching more when I became the director at the club. And so I just kind of started like smoothing out the backhand to try to just get it, back to my students so they're not having to run sideways the whole time while they're working on form stuff. And now I can hit my, one-hander, not just my slice, but my drive, way better. And I didn't even practice it. That's the thing, is I didn't video, I didn't practice, nothing. I just gave it time. Just gave it let time smooth out. And is it as pretty as I want? No. Is my backhand form in disc golf as pretty as I want? No. There's a lot of stuff that I look at. People ask me, oh man, when you look at your form, do you just love it? Because they see me throw, smooth, and it goes decently far. They're like, man, I love your form. Do you like your form? I'm like, no, I hate my form.
No, none of us like our form.
I absolutely hate my form. But what I do love is how it feels right now.
Yeah, so. and I think that feeling part, it's fair. Like Sunday, I knew it didn't feel good, even though I knew mechanically part of what was happening was better, but none of the tempo, none of the rhythm, certain things are rushing. Like you got to get memory for that too. So one thing I'd like to share now is, I had this very reckless approach, like 6 months, lots of changes to get to something that looks integrated and well formed.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to remember, like a lot of motor skills take 3 weeks of practice and hundreds of reps to get in there permanently. And so, I kind of feel like I'm in almost a catch-up phase, right? It's saying like, okay, I know what it has been to do this well. Keep reinforcing that a lot. And I think that's part of what Josh is talking about here. So Josh, I did have a question for you too about, you mentioned certain things you're working on right now. Could you just mention a couple? I'm going to close the window here because I know it's noisy.
Yep. And then let me get Jeremy's question in here as well before we move onwards. He says, quick question to the brain scientist.
Oh.
Does training slow help with making new neural pathways? And if so, when can you determine that speeding up is beneficial? Well, I'm not a neuroscientist, but I can absolutely tell you that I would be shocked. I can't absolutely tell you because I actually don't have the degree, but I would be shocked if going slow in the beginning does not help you form those pathways. But we're all going to find out together right now.
Ding, ding, ding. Josh is correct. Yeah. And I think, let me map that to feel because we don't talk about it. So feel can be misleading. You can do something that feels good, but sometimes the first thing you do is make it uncomfortable to get better. And that's usually any change. The way I think about that now, where I have this sort of like raw, but technically better swing is, creating time between when the swing starts and when it finishes. And there's this really funny thing about our brains and perception that something can be happening very, very quickly in your movement, but you perceive it to be very, very slow. And so I want to mention that because when I have my best swings now that I've worked really hard, like I have a visual memory for what it should look like on camera at this point. I know how that feels. And it's almost every time feels like the slowest swing I can muster. I've created all this space. And what that means, it's not just what feel means is your body giving you feedback to your brain. Right? There's sensory cortex that's receiving these signals. And the longer that swing feels, the more time there is, not in reality, but in your brain for the sequence and the precision and the control. And so that's why right now I deliberately make every move I can as slow as possible. And I try to gain smoother acceleration through the movements over time. I'm doing the same thing physically. The sequence is the same, but I'm focusing on that kind of property. And the more I do that, the better the swings are the next time I go out and throw.
Yeah, basically it lets your body, like if something happens very, very quickly, there's only so much that your senses can tell your brain that it experienced, right? It's like sometimes if you get injured or something, like you're just moving, and you take a tumble, you don't even realize you got cut on your arm until later you're bleeding and you're like, oh, when did that happen? And you're like, I'm bleeding. But I guarantee you, if that was a really slow cut, and you limited the feelings that were happening at that time, you would you would feel that cut happening. Right? Just sometimes you're going in, you go through the whole briar bush to grab your disc, and it's just like boom, and you don't even recognize how many cuts you got. Until afterwards. So slowing down allows your senses to tell you more feelings that you experienced.
Yeah. And I think a lot about catchphrases that are kind of bandied around in coaching space or like well-intentioned tips out there, because we all hear them all the time. And, slow is, what is it? Slow is smooth and smooth is far. And yeah, kind of, because ultimately you still need that move to accelerate, obviously, to speed up the throw. How fast the disc comes out is going to be the main determinant of distance in most cases. And so, yeah, you want that. But for me as a neuroscientist, slow is smooth literally means muscle programming. That's what I'm doing. Slow it down, gain mastery, and then accelerating. Yes, it's happening faster, but it still feels slow to me. Right. And then so I kind of use that as an internal clock as I swing. I'm like, no, that one was just too quick. Make it as slow as possible. And then the weird phenomenon I've experienced is like you look on camera and it's a lot faster than it felt to you. Right?
Yeah. Somebody had mentioned that in one of our like more recent the pendulum video. And they were like, "What's happening between here and here? It looks like you're going so much faster. Like, what are you doing to accelerate?" And it's like I thought I was going the same speed,
Yeah.
and then I was just smoothing it out.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so, and then there's kind of this natural acceleration. So yeah,
Yeah.
this says I tell new players to make the initial few inches of the pull through slow. Helps smooth it out and gets more explosion at the end. Yeah, the thing about slow is like John said, it just helps program the right movements. Just helps create that path. And then eventually you're going to feel like you're going 10 miles an hour and it's actually going to be 11. It's actually going to be 12 and the feeling's going to be the same. It's like time expands for you. And that was like the big thing in tennis is it's like the pros are doing all the same things, they're just doing them faster. Like everything just happens faster. You have one thought when you're running to track down that ball, they have three. Like I'm going to get there here, he's going to close here and he's going to do this. So I need to hit it over here, which means after that I'm going to recover over here. And so they have three thoughts on the run. It all goes boom, right in their brain, right off. And then you as a new player, you're just like, can I even get there? That's your only thought. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just so much. And there are just so many ways that you have to work on breaking up and like learning to create those thought processes and those feels and all of those things. And so drills do it. Drills do it. Slow motion swings do it. They're all ways of just breaking up a thought or an action into a piece that you can experience, and then you can add it on later.
Yeah. And I think I'm just having this thought about what I feel like I've been learning most recently is, especially because I had this really technical approach to learning. Mm-hmm. When I'm kind of going after the feel and simplifying it, the number of things I'm working on is two at most at any given time, mm-hmm. right? And there's a good learning principle for that. Your body's going to do all kinds of weird stuff every time you make a change. And it's going to just try to learn balance. Like, how do I not fall down when I'm doing mm-hmm. this stuff? So you kind of see when we transition to the form view in a minute, like I think a lot about gravity and weight, and you'll see why in a second. But for me, it's like, all right, your body wants to not fall down. So you're kind of trying to find little tricks about adjust this. And if you pick the right cause, it's going to have multiple effects, right? Because if you keep drilling like, oh, I just need my arm to do this instead, mm-hmm. your body's going to start adjusting around it. And yeah, you might have like a little whack-a-mole and you have to change this thing that went out of drift or whatever, but keep it simple for your brain. If you only have one thing to improve, the great thing about brains is they're so adaptable. So you just have to have a little trust in the long run. And another thing I'm learning to trust now is sleep and rest, like we talked about. Like I know the program is in there. It's only going to do its best when I'm well rested and totally fresh. And, beating a body down for months has consequences. And so, I think we'll just kind of talk a bit about pace and, growth and things like that.
Yeah. Well, with that, I think we go ahead and we get into...
Let's do stuff.
We get into my form.
Cool.
So this will be very interesting for me.
Yeah. And me too, because, we deliberately didn't plan much. I mean, I have a few notes here about what I'd like to get to, but mostly I wanted this to just be an interaction too. So let me get a screen share here. And, actually, I'm going to start with my surprise image of, can we all see these feet?
Yes. Let me read this comment first. The Disc Golf Dude says, I've been playing 3 years. Just reached 500 feet.
Congrats.
I played collegiate tennis. I hit a one-handed backhand. I always attribute my disc golf abilities to hitting the one-hand backhand. There are some really, really good things about that. And, I'll tell you, when we see my I'll talk about some tennis stuff when we see my it's funny because the things that I fixed in my tennis backhand are naturally there in my disc golf backhand. And now that I think about it, I wonder if that's why I had issues fixing them in tennis, because it pulled straight over from disc golf. Yeah. In the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we should talk about like cross sports and action things. I mean, yeah. So
cross training is so good.
Yeah. And remember, I just think that it's okay if you're not hitting 500 feet in 3 years, especially when you don't have certain physical features and backgrounds, right? So
Yeah.
again, expectations.
Yep. I could do a lot of practicing, and Mikey is able to accelerate very quickly in his learning because, not only does he have the athletic knowledge and like body competence, body awareness to feel like, wow, that's slow or wow, that's fast. That's
Yep.
something that you learn in other sports because every sport, if you want to kick a ball further, it's about being faster with your foot at the end of the
Yep.
day. It's
Yep.
faster. If you want to hit a golf ball further, it's about being faster. The club head just needs to be faster. If you want to name a sport, any sport that is in that vein is all about being faster. So there's like that natural body awareness that you get, plus the muscular development and things like that people don't really take into account. I could
Yep.
go out and practice like the disc golf dude. You could go out and probably practice a bunch of disc golf right off. And you would get longer sessions than most people because you were a collegiate tennis player and your
Yep.
body's prepared to take on some of those moves, a lot of those moves. Not every move, but a lot of the moves. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing just on that point too, that, so think about my timeline where I've done the most total rebuild of my form in just 6 months to get to a good spot. A lot of the soft tissues don't really build up resilience for yet another 4 to 6 months after that. There's good evidence to show, the programs happen first, the muscles lag just behind that, the connection points to the muscles after that. And then things like ligaments and other really sensitive tissues, right? They take a while. And so I've started to get a lot more acceleration on the disc, and you get this prototypical strain on this line from the arm decelerating back around. So most people have built that up over many, many months and years, often of form development. I sort of rushed a lot of this, so I get a lot of more speed than some of this tissue can handle. And so that's part of where I start to mix in, like, okay, like I'm 80% approach style shots to work on smoothness, and then I sparingly mix in some more of the distance because I have to be careful with that ratio. I just have to wait for my tissues to catch up, in other words.
yeah. Yep. And we would have kids that would go off and it'd be like, that kid's just not good. He's not going to make it.
Sure.
And then it'd be like 2 years later, it'd be like, dude, who are you training with? Who's your
Yeah.
coach? And it's like, I just picked tennis back
Father
up this
time.
this summer.
Yeah.
I just played with my mom last week.
Right.
And it's like, dude, who are you? Who are
Yeah.
you, man?
Yeah.
Where's the little Benny that I knew?
Just need time to cook. Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes you just need time to cook. So what are we looking at here, Doc?
All right. So here's some feet. And these are not mine. These are Josh's.
Those are
But
my
you see
feet.
Similar.
And I hiked up my shorts so you could see my knees.
We wanted to see the beautiful calves. Where we got a good base here to work with. So I start here just because one of the things I really spent a long time being confused about was how do pros' legs move the way that they do. Coming from like, I messed up my knees pretty early on, and I was really cautious about that. And it just turns out that, people like Josh and I, we've got pretty neutral forward feet. Some of you've got more external rotation that's called slightly duck footed. Some are more, internal, right? So more pigeon toed. And that's all fine. That's like just normal variation. And so when people are kind of looking at X step approaches, you might see Lazat's foot looking like it's well turned out, and it is. But neutral for him is probably much more externally rotated. You can watch him walk and he's got that gait.
So neutral for him is he walks like this.
A little more like this. Yeah.
Wings out.
Yeah. And so, that's going to change exactly how his body ideally comes in, like all this little stuff. So the thing I have learned to focus on when talking about feet is you just want to make sure that whatever that angle is for you, you're able to load into and out of that hip.
Right.
It's
It's the loading of the
everybody.
legs. And sometimes it's helpful to mention like, oh, your foot here, but as coaches we got to look and say, it's not like your foot doesn't have to be pointed back. Like like Drew's is pointed back and Paul's is pointed basically how mine are oriented in this picture. If the basket's off to my right, his like right foot is pointed basically perpendicular to the basket or to his target line.
Yeah.
So, and there's, I guess the principle is the principle is load the hip.
Yep.
The result with where the foot points doesn't always look the same.
Yeah, it's kind of like a symptom, not a cause, right?
Right.
And so, like, you know, and another way I found this, because I struggled mightily with the like rear pointing foot and not getting off it right. I learned to turn that foot in until it almost felt like it was pointing toward the target, and then I'd look down, and it's exactly how they're pointed when I'm standing neutrally. It's just like I feel like when you're kind of running up and taking on too much, people just tend to let that leg drag for whatever reason. Just kind of pack it in, find that neutral, and keep moving. So just a point I wanted to make in general. All right, so on to the good stuff here. This lovely guy is about to show us a shot.
This is hole 1 at L'Oreal. I got some random dude to film me today.
Yeah.
Thanks, random dude.
And iPhone quality, it's going to be good. So I want to point out too, just a couple things I do if I had never seen Josh throw, what I notice immediately. Josh and I are like not Calvin Heimberg, right? We're stockier dudes, and we're probably not going to get power exactly the same way that he does. And so I like to separate that into like Calvin can kind of get away with a lot more linear toward the target leverage. He can move fast sideways. His legs are very long, and that can move him into the plant very quickly.
Yeah, to quote Baymax, I am not fast. So relying on speed for me is not a winning equation.
Yeah,
never has been in any sport.
Yeah.
By the way,
you and I both. Yeah, like
I'm not the slowest guy in tennis, but I'm for sure not the fastest.
Not the fastest. Yeah. Yeah. So I feel you, man. So we're kind of working with what we got. We're probably going to expect, whether he's hopping or not, he's going to get more power with a little bit more vertical movement than some people. He's going to use his weight, right?
Me or Calvin?
You.
Yes.
Yeah. And so we'll chat a little bit about that. So I'll just kind of let it swing through here. This is going to be a big spike hyzer on a short tee, I think.
Yeah, it's probably about a 260-foot hole. Okay. And I'm just throwing a Firebird on a big old spike hyzer.
Okay, so if we like flattened it out, it could be like a 300-ish foot shot. This
swing right here would get me an easy, probably 350 with a fairway.
Okay, so I want to call out right away, and this is something I just like love seeing and learn from every time I see it, including Josh's. Just look how slow he's moving in the whole approach. And nothing about the swing looks like he's working very hard. And you probably don't feel like you're working hard on this, do you?
No.
Yeah.
I'm in the smooth phase right now. I want it to be super easy.
Yeah. And so what I was really just happy to see and honestly impacted me right away is when I'm back at it with actual swings, I've got swings like this in my mind. Slow and easy, like you're just lobbing discs out and the form is doing the work. So, we've got that nice natural approach. Notice in this a step here, and you've seen this in your videos. Regardless of how you start at the tee, I love that you're kind of squaring it up more or less. You can see his feet are taking that neutral-ish position relative to one another. Mm-hmm. So when I talk about, as my mentor does often, this leverage idea, this is a good leverage position for Josh's foot. He's not pointed far away from target, and when his plant lands, he's got still a pretty neutral posture for his feet.
You're talking about my right foot isn't in a good position?
So you've got this foot relatively neutral compared to this foot.
Uh-huh.
And it's probably helping your body and weight get off from this hip pretty easily.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of work happening in that transition. So again, I'm starting with a like compliment sandwich. So I'm going to call out like all the kudos that I'm just seeing right off the bat.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Although it could have worked the other way too. You could have smacked me around a little bit first.
I could just with the red marker come in and be like, this paper returned to sender. Yeah. But no. Lots of good to see here. So we've got that. I also, this is something I think a lot of people see and misinterpret. So, and I've seen in Josh's videos as well. So you're coming up, you see eyes on the target, your head's coming offline, but still, you kind of got the corner of the eye phenomenon to the target. Well, what Josh is doing here is you can see he's still got nice spine curved this way. He hasn't taken his head and like tipped himself over toward the front foot. And a lot of people that are looking for the target do that just right away. And so what they've done is like, rather than getting
like
this nice sway, so they're kind of pulling off to the side a bit with the head. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't take much, but if you do that, your spine wants to pendulum back and forth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't see that in Josh's form. It's kind of letting his body get in the right position. You can get a good pull.
You're saying this is still on the good side. Is
we're
that
gonna
where
stay,
we're at?
I'm going to tell you when it gets down and dirty.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So we're still good.
Just for you guys, this is all good stuff.
All good
so
stuff.
far,
Stuff that
and
if
maybe
see
potentially
it,
for me.
there you go. Closed shoulder. So he's got his reach back. He's got a strong position to the arm. And this arm is going to be led by the shoulder. Another thing, like for whatever reason, a lot of people kind of like come up early and crimp their shoulder out. He's using his whole upper body and shoulder to lead the swing. And so it's going to come through nice and easy. I want to get a still frame on this because a lot of people misunderstand this part, I think.
Oh, look at that closed shoulder throw out.
Look at that.
Wow.
So I learned this with literally throwing hammers, but like go and throw a hammer once or twice. The best way to throw it is just swing it out with your shoulder.
Yeah. I was thinking on the car ride over here, I was like, dude, I need to get down and dirty with some hammers.
Yeah.
I like literally need to try that because
hammers.
It's like, it's the thing.
Yeah. And I don't know what it was, but most people have a really hard time figuring this out if they didn't learn early enough, like, because the disc is so freaking light, right? So you got to find these little tricks when you're older often to figure it out. Yeah. So I like it, good leverage. The disc is ripping around. It's about to get a good pull. That's part of where you're getting this effortless power. So what I really like in general is like you got a lot of power coming through this upper body kinematic chain. I want to talk about the off arm and a good thing. So we'll talk about like kind of the height in a sec. But watch the elbow come into the hip. Nice and easy. I think about this as like it's just helping the hips get more toward the target. It's helping you sway into the target. So this is like a very pendulum looking swing because you're kind of rocking back and forward and all that's connected really well. And last thing, because so many people get confused about this, but I think we see good stuff. When you're shifting the weight forward onto the plant, let's watch the rear leg and what it does. So the weight's about to shift here. You can see the heel's coming off because weight is shifted forward. This knee is going to drop in and under into a counterbalance, and it's going to kind of counter rotate the swing. And you want to see that kind of action in the swing because it's kind of think about it like two gears moving in unison with one another. It's getting more leverage and counter rotation into the swing. And you see that in the leg. We want to see that in the off arm. These are all signs that there's some kind of weight shift getting you forward and that the action is pulling that leg back and under. Some people spin out, we call it, or squishing the bug is one version of this, which is confusing because it means different things to different people. So I'll just say spin out. Spinning out is when that rear leg isn't countering back. It's just kind of rotating and kicking forward. Yeah. So I just want to, call that out.
We can find footage of me doing that.
Yeah, I'm sure I have some on the deck too, for sure. So all that's going well. So I wanted to, as I talk about some notes of things I would pick out to maybe improve. Are there like particular things you're working on yourself right now?
So right now, where I'm at is I'm working on, basically, I'm trying to work on the loading of the hips on my final stride because I don't think I do that well. Okay. And then swinging the hips back forward ahead of my upper body.
Gotcha. Yep. So a little bit of lag in the swing. Okay.
Yeah, because I feel like everything good about my form is upper body, except for my left arm.
All right. So I like disagree in the positive way that like your lower body's doing lots of stuff mine wasn't, but I think I'm going to point out a couple like really fussy looking things that add up to a lot in the hips.
Yeah.
Okay. So
let's do it
there. Yeah. All right. So again, we'll start with the hips in the ground just because that is such a big thing. So let me actually point out one of the things I really liked and learned from in Josh's form is that his upper body chain, I think, is so tight and smooth that once he gets more hip action in that, there always is an adjustment phase, but I won't be surprised if he kind of like levels up in power and reduces effort again. So, this is a good case where like the chain's making a lot of sense, I think. And we're talking more about like posture changes that help things work a little bit better together. Yeah. So I think right here, we've got like a nice compact cross step. The weight's in front of that step. So all looking good. Right here, there's a relationship between this shoulder and this hip and
Right.
this reach back. Yeah. And I'm
This is
still
where I
working on
start
this
not
too.
liking
Yeah.
my form. So
Okay, sweet. So, and if you go look at my recent video, or if we do a cross roast, Josh to me, like you'll see in me, like I'm still somewhere on this rear side problem. So right there, it was quick. Just try to get a still frame that shows it. All right, we can work with this. So if you watch, go to like the Gibson and Lazat reels, any of the shots where it's interesting, it's somewhere around 450 feet of distance. Regardless of the body type, if the pros have it, they're kind of loading up this shoulder just behind this rear hip a bit. And the only way that really works anatomically is if you also allow this hip to clear kind of back a bit more.
right.
Yeah. So when I practice this, I really find that like literally I'm just practicing the reach back or backswing, feeling that compression into that rear hip.
Yep. Yeah,
Yep.
I can show you.
Let's
Let me
do it.
press this demonstrate thing and see what happens.
Nice.
So now we should be on this audio over here. Let me just destroy this. Yeah, so it's here, right? Here it's got to coil back this way, is what you're saying. And you start feeling it here, right?
Yep.
Here, because this goes and rotates back here.
Yep.
So we've got the hips, they go back and down.
Yep.
And then they go up and forward.
Yep. And you
And
just feel
so
that like sway.
The
through
load,
spine. Yep.
so my load here, and this load happens starting here, right? So then we start initiating the load here.
Yep.
And that's where it gets there. And that's where the shoulder's over the leg, right? Because I've properly loaded the leg.
Yep.
Is what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure, because that's also what I would like to do.
Yeah. So, all right, cool.
And it's
so
what I
we're converging
teach.
there.
That's the thing. It's like, you think I do this just because I teach it? No,
No,
I don't
man,
get to
like,
practice.
Exactly. And like, believe me, I wish my body and time could take 16 hours a day, and it's just, you can't, right? So our knowledge leads our ability often, you know?
But the funny thing is just thinking about it and just practicing like what I just did there, like has led me to this being somewhat better than it was with, I should have brought up a video. I should have, I've got a video.
All right.
Let me do this real quick.
And while you pull it, I'll show kind of like very similar to what Josh showed, but this is literally a similar drill for what I've been doing in my kind of slow swings.
I want to watch this too.
Can you still hear me? Not if you can.
I can still hear you. Yeah.
All right. So he's got the load part there, this backswing and shoulder. You can imagine me holding a hammer or some heavy objects. Same idea. So sometimes I'll do this with a weight. You don't need much. But if you're doing it right, you'll feel the load into that rear hip. The second thing that you want to feel is it's kind of like a spring compressing. You're going to feel that load not just in the hip, but through the whole leg. And then when you're coming to the forward, it should feel like a spring helping you leap off that. So it's load, compress, decompress. The second thing that I find much harder to see in video, but it's easy to feel, is you were kind of swinging a hammer back. There's this moment where you're kind of like heaving it. You're not literally letting the hammer go, but the weight is going to carry the arm back. You want your arm to feel heavy going back, which additionally helps you load. So think about that. You've got then this big rubber band running from this heel all the way up around the back into this arm. And this was one of the like most elusive things for me to find in form, is this connection between that backswing load all the way through the shoulder and down through the leg. So maybe that helps people kind of find the feeling component, which again, like you can kind of see it when you're really looking for it close, but it's very hard to see.
Yeah, and we did it in tennis a lot with medicine ball.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, and so the stage that I'm at is I can do it, and I can feel the compression, and I can feel the loading of the hip without a disc.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But my mind automatically goes to like, does the upper body feel good? And I can make the
Yeah,
upper body
exactly.
feel good, obviously, apart from the lower body. And there's like a smoothness with the upper body. But
Yeah,
the
getting that
lower
connection
body,
the whole way.
getting the initial like transfer load first, and then transfer is tough.
It's real tough. Yeah, and I kind of feel like it's a sort of thing where like several things need to work well together for it to work really well, and it just like takes a lot of time and reps.
Okay, I'm finding. We will find. Okay. Yeah, here we go. Upload. I'll upload that boy. We could look at that for fun later. I haven't looked at it in a
Nice.
long time, so I will be very
Oh, I'm
interested.
excited. Blast from the past.
Yeah. All pending uploads has completed. Okay, I think you got it. I don't know which one it is though. It must be, huh? I don't know, but it completed.
It's somewhere in the ether.
I'll be able to tell you. Let me click. Oh, video's still processing. Okay, it's the one that doesn't have a thumbnail. Well, we'll find. We'll look at that later. But yeah,
Sweet.
yep. Okay, what else? Because I'm there with you. I want that fixed desperately.
Love it. All
Well,
right, so we're
not
both on
desperate
this.
enough to stop what I'm currently working on.
Well, I mean, like again, a thing at a time, right?
Yeah.
Well, and I wanted to point out too, though, like it's not always bad if the shoulder isn't behind the hip.
Yeah.
The idea is the relationship between the two. And so like if people go back and like check out your montages, I've just looked the most at Lazat and Gibson. They're scaling back that shoulder load, but they're also scaling back everything else a little bit for shorter distances.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so you would expect to see, even if I powered up on a drive or if I took even more off, sure, maybe my shoulder's not quite as far back, but let's say that the difference here is a foot. If I take this to half power, it'll be 6 inches, but my shoulder's still going to be in front of the foot, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like, I think this is a little different for everybody, but what has started to help me is I practice every shot now in the absolute full range of motion I can find. But what I do is I down tempo it. And then I'm less of a head case on the course, of course. Like I'm just there kind of doing what's natural, and your chain kind of figures it out a little bit. But when practicing, it's kind of like, give your whole form room to breathe, I think.
Right.
And then these adjustments kind of take place. Yeah. So yeah, just a little thing. And I think, once, at least once I find, once you get that connection between that backswing and that hip load, you're starting to you can feel the power in that move, and it gets a little better over time, all right, cool. So that was the main thing on the drive side.
So your drill for that, by the way, is with a hammer.
I use a hammer or a 2 to 5 pound weight.
Okay.
The reason I use a hammer, and this is a grip thing, because some people like you said, when you have the disc in your hand, like anybody's bet, right? Who knows? What I found really useful about the hammer drill is, you kind of get it in your pour the coffee alignment with your thumb along what would be the back of the hammer.
Yeah.
And hold it like you're levering it or a disc out. And for me, having the actual hammer helps you get that full extension and alignment straight back. And if you let your arm just kind of heave a little bit, your hip is going to naturally want to load. So I literally will swing it back and forth just into the backswing, right? Until I kind of feel that deep connection all the way down to my foot with that backswing. And then you'll kind of know it helps your backswing position, because there's literally only one angle for most of us that's like the strongest place to pull from. And when I hit that slot, those are easily my longest drives.
Gotcha.
Right, because you're just like pulling directly through what it would take to swing a hammer really hard or whatever. Same idea.
Okay, word. What's next?
All right, so we're gonna throw some hammers, and let's talk about the front hip thing, because I feel like it's so easy to miss this visually, and it's so easy to do it wrong physically. But the fix was actually frustratingly simple for me. So I think you might have this hip open a little bit earlier than we'd like.
Yeah, to me that seems like an issue with the load, doesn't it?
Yeah,
they're tied together.
Yes, because the better you're loaded into the depth, the
Right.
more your body is going to bring the weight and what we call a shift from behind.
Right, yeah. So if I do this properly, if I'm here and I get my hammer and I work on my hammer timing, like this hip is closed. This lead
Yep.
hip's closed, right? With
Yep.
the initial hammer drill,
Yep.
right? Or we're hoping it will solve both,
Yep.
right?
And
And
yep.
then it's the shift from behind, right?
Yes. And so you could even just see in how Josh was sort of swinging, you know, sometimes people talk about that elbow the door down.
Mm-hmm.
Again, if that's going wrong, that's wrong. But when you have the shift from behind, you're going to feel your weight pulling down. It's down and into the target. It's not just forward.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So let me show one other little thing I do with this sort of weight idea.
Yeah.
That really helps bind it together. I'll step away for a sec. One thing I didn't get about the shift from behind in the reach back.
Do you need to go off of screen share so that, hold on.
Can you still hear me? Will be X.
I was just asking if you needed to go off of screen share so that they're not seeing my still.
Oh yeah, I didn't notice. Sorry
still
about
form
that.
up there.
Got me now?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, sorry, gang. Same idea there. Hip load and backswing all in one.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. This is 2 to 5 pounds, and so when you practice that, it's actually gotten easier for me to pretend this whole arm is kind of separate from my body. I'm actually kind of like throwing my arm back. It feels like that. It's very heavy to me, and so I'm releasing that arm into the backswing. One of the things that I practice in addition to what Josh was showing is you actually want to feel like this is kind of keeping your weight high and back at first. You want to feel like it's kind of stretching you out down to the leg like we talked about. And then when you shift, it should feel almost literally like you're falling behind you. But my feet, if we were to show that, oh, this is going to be a disaster, but let's try. All right, I can do this, guys. All right, there we go. So same motion here, right? This is kind of neutral for me. I've got a little bit of rotation out. I'm going to do that same drill. I'm going to let that foot come up, so like Josh's was. But notice that I'm kind of keeping my weight up, back, and closed. That's why my knee's kind of hanging back here, this one, right? When I shift, notice that my foot is still going to be kind of in a straight line here. I'm going to explain why that makes sense in a second. But I'm going to pull back in the backswing. My weight, you saw, came with my foot planted kind of 90 degrees to target. The important part was that my weight fell down from almost directly away from the target. So intuitively, you want to kind of think about it, as we often talk about, as like loading up your weight against that disc. And then that's going to help it sling forward once the weight shift resolves. And most players, almost everybody, I got to be saying, unless they're like got really pristine form, they're a little bit away from shifting from behind, at least a little bit. Mm-hmm. Like almost everybody could get a little bit more torque out of the hips just by fixing that.
Right.
It's missing in like everybody's form.
Yeah. So what took me, until that video, because I heard weight shift from behind. It took me until the video that you sent me I was like, what is from behind? I thought behind was like here. And so like you're sliding here, but it's not. It's literally your behind is, you're here, whoop, and now your weight shift, your hips load back, and now behind is literally this way.
Yes. Yep.
Is literally target word.
Yep.
And it's only behind, because most people, they come in like this, right? So we're thinking on this last step, I'm thinking behind's this way.
Yes. Yep.
How does that work? No, this only works if you load the hips, and then weight shift from behind is because my behind is literally forward now. And then I fall into it.
Yep.
So, boom, it's almost like if you think about launching something off of like a roller coaster or something, where you like start at the top and you go, whoom, right?
Yep.
We're actually pulling everything up. Like you were saying.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Everything goes up, and so we're at the top of the roller coaster, and then we're going to drop everything into the bottom, and then that's going to allow us to feel the force of the uphill.
Yep.
On the roller coaster. So it's going to go, we're tick, 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 tick of the roller coaster, and now we're, right? And then boom, flying off the next one.
Yep. Totally. You got it. I love the way you described that.
Yeah.
And I think that the other thing that most people struggle with, and I think why this is so hard, and you see people with like all these bunched shoulders rising up, and these other things are kind of symptoms of that going wrong, is it really should feel like falling at first. Like you have to, I say, surrender yourself to gravity. You just fall from behind into the plant. And so you might need to exaggerate that. And it's usually much easier to do if you're literally standing in place at first. And then your body, you got to train your brain again to like trust, oh, it's fine to do this. I can't see it, so I'm afraid of falling, but you're going to fall into the plant and you catch yourself. So for me, it really like, it took a lot of work to just convince my brain that was okay to do.
Right.
Once I did, posture gets better, footwork gets better and so on. So last minor point on that real quick was, you should get the shift from behind. Where should my plant stride be, right? Should it be like coming in and out wide like Lazat? Should it be kind of neutral? I'm just saying, Jen, find what's kind of neutral and comfortable for your
Right.
hips.
It's whatever, when you learn to, and people talk about this all the time. I have to talk to people in lessons about it. Like, oh, I think I need to plant more out. I think I need to plant more less out or whatever. It's like, if you are swinging the hips in properly and you're loaded properly, it's going to naturally set where that foot should be.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
So
Yep.
it's not like something that you have to go out and measure and find or put like lines on the floor and say like, here's where my foot's going to be, because it's not probably. You'd have to get really, really, you'd have to get really, really lucky for that thing to be exactly where you need to mark it out.
Totally.
And so it's like what's natural for you when you get the correct form pieces, which is like the loading of the hips and then the unloading of the hips.
Yeah.
Will naturally put you where you need to be.
Totally. And so, I think, there's a good example where like me understanding the actual mechanics better totally changed how I got to the feel. Right. Yeah. And so like, and I'm sure we can both share a couple examples of how to learn that better, but that should do. Nice. All right. So nothing surprising to Josh yet. This is exciting. Let me see.
Nothing surprising. It all is
Excellent.
coming from the same little form piece so far, in my opinion. It's
Excellent.
all from
I
this
agree.
crossover, my left foot coming out of the X, and like
agree.
what I do from there.
Yep. Some loading at that position. Great. And all right. So
I'm excited. You sound like you got something that I don't expect.
I don't know. I'm trying to keep it saucy, but I don't want to just,
Well, it's like a win-win. It's like either there's something that I didn't expect and I didn't know and I learned, or I already knew it and, I'm a better coach than I thought I was.
Exactly. And, and we all benefit from, chatting about it out loud. So it's good. Here's my other favorite leg topic. And I want to say it a couple ways. So this knee,
the right knee
right here. Yep. Mm-hmm. So the right plant knee is kind of leaking out a little bit toward the target. And let me kind of talk about the two ways I think about this. Mm-hmm. Is it wrong for the knee to go forward? And my answer is no, depending on what the goal of the shot or the form is. Mm-hmm. So Josh, I think, is still getting leverage out of the ground. So again, the idea is like, how do I use the ground to propel the throw up the chain? So he's getting his foot down. He's got a little bit of bend, but he's still levering his hip back and open.
Right.
So in some sports like baseball, there's also this idea of posting up, which is that this leg is sort of naturally straightening, kind of in the follow through mostly. You're not kind of like trying to shove off the ground at all. It should be like a little pogo, right? Mm-hmm. And if Josh were like trying to cue up a power shot or really trying to push a distance, he'd probably get a little more leverage out of like more oomph in
the leg would probably be
less
straighter because I'd be, getting a little more resistance off the ground, right?
Yeah. And so I think sometimes the place people get in trouble is like they're like I used to, they're kind of literally like compressing a bit and leaking, which I don't think you're doing here. Mm-hmm. Or they've actually got a bit of a pump, but they're missing a little bit of power that they could otherwise get. Right. So it's just a minor thing here, I think.
Yeah. So the idea is like if we go back to the roller coaster, it's like the ride's not quite as fun if the next uphill isn't really that uphill.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like you go and it's like okay, it was decent ride.
You got like the second bump,
but you didn't get
anticlimactic.
the boom.
Right. Yeah.
And we want the slide down with a
We want the rush
launch
of
over the
water in
lake.
face. Yeah.
And then, catapult out of there. So,
Yep.
the more you swing that hip up,
Yep.
and the more that hip goes up and back, the more straight that leg will be.
Yeah.
But you can get the leg, you can get the hip doing the right thing without a straight leg.
Yes. So like you'll see Christian Kuopsa, Paul Macbeth, right? Like you can see a lot of high level throwers, even for pretty far shots, will have sometimes just like a control shot form where they have more knee bend and they're clearly trying to get more low level control or something in the shot.
Right.
I think something people can work on to start though is like, again, like controlling the whole range of motion sometimes helps, make it simpler later.
Right. And that's actually where I'm at, is I'm working on the range of motions of especially this part right here, is I'm trying to work on pulling that hip up and back.
Yeah.
Is something that this has improved. I'm sure we will look at this other form video that I shared to our Google Drive folder.
Nice. So
I'm excited to see what that piece of garbage looks like.
I don't think it's as bad as you thought when you were texting me, but it'll be good.
Oh, no, I'm talking about the one that I sent you from like months and months ago.
Oh, just now?
Probably
Okay,
over a
good.
year ago.
Yeah. All right, let's do it.
But yeah, the other one where I'm actually like trying to throw a moderate distance shot, that's going to be garbage too.
I can't wait. I'll share a bunch of garbage with you sometime so you can get me back.
Yeah.
All right. So let me just point out, I only have like one other main thing here. So, two things. So, talk through all the legs. You're aware of the problem. I think this is a nice example where like a lot's mechanically working out well. It's an issue of adjustment, right? And so let's talk about the throw off arm real quick.
Yes.
I want you to tell me what your reaction is.
Are you going to stop me in the superhero pose?
Yeah. Wait. I just missed it. Just missed it. There we go.
There it is. Look at that.
So like,
it's too much.
So why do you think it's too much?
I think it's too much because I don't think my arm's not getting back in time to be useful. I think I've got like enough of where the like off arm helps keep my shoulder closed. But I want more, and I want more compact. For everything else in my form being as compact as it is, that's a really big piece. So it feels very clunky.
And kind of loose.
It's like, I was trying to think of this character that's got like this just big, beefy arm. Trogdor, basically.
Yeah.
It's just Trogdor right
it's
there.
Just Trogdor flailing out the backside.
Yeah, burning all the cottages. All the thatched roof cottages.
Yeah. I haven't heard a Trogdor reference in too long, man. So thank you for that.
Yeah, just give him one big beefy arm.
Yeah, just one. Yeah. So I mean, look, it's a good beefy arm in a couple ways. So like the compliment, on the one hand, like when it's happening, more or less makes sense, and something that like people think so much about the reach back that when they talk about the off arm, they're like, oh well, now they're like, I need the off arm, I need a swim move, but there's also the off arm backswing. Right. Which you have, right, to kind of help load it up. It's actually helping.
Yeah, the shoulders go back together.
Yeah.
And I've got that.
You've got that. And you've got the disc lagging there. And, just, again, a pendulum gravity effect. If this arm is up and back, when it comes down, it adds more momentum.
Yeah.
Right? So, but yeah, I mean, I think in general, leveling it a little bit more proportional to the other arm, just kind of helps tighten it up a bit.
Yeah, for me, I probably have to think that I probably have to feel like if I were coaching myself or someone who's doing exactly what I'm doing, I would tell them not to move the off arm.
Yeah.
Like, because obviously they're still going to coil their shoulders. I'm not going to stop coiling my shoulders.
Yep.
And if I try to just eliminate off arm activity, I bet you I get somewhere closer to normal.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe actually normal.
You're not like fully abnormal. It's within a range of tolerance.
This is part of like we're looking at your own.
You're like,
I don't. Every time I see it, I don't like it.
Yeah,
I'm like, dude.
Please take it off the screen.
It doesn't
right
feel
now.
like I'm doing that. Chop it off.
I know. Well, I want to like then say I have sort of the opposite problem. So I learned a lot from the like don't spill a beverage position, like keep it in close.
Mm.
But I had the opposite problem where my lower arm couldn't figure out what to do, and I actually pinched in too tight. And so I have like the opposite version I'm working out right now to just like relax the thing a bit.
Yeah. And I was thinking about this in terms of like a drill. I was thinking probably at some point I just start going and I just start doing this.
Yep.
And just
literally,
put both
I was doing
hands on
that
that
today.
sucker.
Yep.
Just as far back as I can get it. And the other thing is that's like medicine ball for me. So now I'm loaded.
Yep.
Like in the lower body.
Yep.
So it's almost like a twofold benefit. As a matter of fact, that's my next practice. Probably not. I'm probably just saying that, and then I'll throw one, and it won't go far, and then I'll just
you'll scrap it
back.
for the next
disc
year and a
go
half.
far, disc go far.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's funny. Like I didn't quite do it with the disc in hand, but I was working on the same drill with the backswing. Just you know. And by the way, if people want to look at a couple examples to think about that, Dave Feldberg has like this super pendulum action, but he's doing this in the backswing. Bradley Williams has like a more subtle, really smooth version that I really like. Yeah.
Pendulum with the offhand, you're saying, right?
Exactly.
Although Feldberg's pendulum both hands.
Yeah, so he's like penultimate.
He's like
pendulum.
the guy.
He's the pendulum guy. He doesn't even have a bent arm through any sort of pocket. And part of that, I think, was like a shoulder injury he once talked about. But he found a way to still get plenty good power just from a pure pendulum.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right, so that was the upswing here. And then again, compliment sandwich. You get that elbow in. It's helping move the posture toward the target. I think you could have more of a swim here.
With the left arm?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing is I think it's so late by the time it finally gets there that my shoulders are already like
they're a little bit ahead of
my right shoulder is already trying to pull that left shoulder forward so that I don't get this, the eagle wing effect where like I'm trying to clap my hands behind my back, which is what I like to do and try to do in tennis. It's just like get that thing over there and just boom down and anyways it's a one-hand backhand dealio. Ain't that right, disc golf dude?
Totally. What does he say?
He just talked about it earlier, and we're not getting a bunch of comments. We got a cajillion people on here, by the way.
Yeah, we can create some breathing room for that too if we need to have me shut up, and we can
throw some stuff out here, guys. There's I think this is the largest live stream so far. We hit, I think I saw 170 something at one point.
Nice.
Concurrent viewers. So that's like people that were on at the same time.
Oh, wait, let me say one thing I forgot real quick. Because this also is like a safety and confusing thing to me. So Drew Gibson, I'd be curious what he has to say himself about this and what you have to say. So like we talked about posting up through this leg.
Yeah.
Gibson, I think, has the most pronounced knee snap of any pro I've seen.
For sure.
By far.
He's like bow-legged, though.
Yeah, he's a little bit bow-legged. I just worry about that because it looks a lot like Tiger Woods' old knee snap before he had like serious knee issues.
Yeah.
Like, I think Drew's probably getting power advantages from that because it's so sudden and so quick off the front hip.
Right.
I'm just worried about that knee in the hip in the long
run. You think... I mean, I guess at some point it'll go kind of like Paul's, where Paul seems to get more and more bent on that front leg every year almost.
Yeah. And he's played around with like the pendulum being larger and smaller over time, like that pump. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if Paul's doing that like consciously or protectively or what that means. Yeah. That'd be interesting to know.
That would be interesting to know. Maybe we can find somebody to ask him at some point.
Yeah. Maybe you can go get those notes. What else do I want to say? So I think those are the big things. Like, look, man, like I'm liking it because like the chain has a lot good going on. Like I think a lot of people just have trouble getting a chain that works, right? And so it's neat to see this because like it's very deliberate and controlled. You got a lot of power coming through at high control, and there's like a handful of little fussy things to change to get the mechanics to work even better. Yeah.
Jason Moon asks a question, and we can both answer it. I'm digging my toe in hard on my plants and can't turn my foot. Any advice? How do I get to my heel so I can pivot? For me, that seems like a hip digging into the ground and not coming back up. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, not just the toe, but I find like when people get stuck on the toe, the edge of the foot, or even just sometimes stuck on the heel, it usually means that they're bringing their weight in incorrectly.
Yeah, they're
Right.
like their upper body comes over and
Yep. They're like either coming way down too hard on top, right? They might be coming in like really hard laterally without doing this shift from behind idea. Because the whole problem with most people's hips is they're naturally balls and sockets and they want to swivel. They do that when you walk or run because you've been doing that since you were little. When you're moving sideways, you're trying to get that same swivel, but it's really weird feeling for most people. So you got to get this kind of weird balance between loading up the hips and unloading them into the plant, right? And there's this weird pressure relationship, right? Like you can go too much on the dry foot. And what I find usually is if I do too little on that dry foot, that rear foot, my plant foot pushes way too hard, right? So like you got to really work on like getting this natural, almost walking like motion. And that's why I think, people like Josh and me advise, try to keep it small and work on things like that shifting idea. You want to feel like it's rolling more than it's like jamming anything.
yeah.
So I usually advise work toe heel, try to find that shift and move toe heel. Different people do it differently. The reason I start there is because it's a little easier thinking toe heel for me. The calves can absorb some of the brunt of the plant because you're still taking like a lot of impact in the plant step either way. Yeah. So kind of taking a soft landing, so to speak, is better for the body.
Right.
I don't know if you think differently about that, Josh, but that was
Soft landings better for the body for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Anytime you can let a muscle take it instead of a joint or a ligament, which comes from fluid movements.
Yeah.
Instead of just like
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah. All right, back view. I forgot we had this. We could almost see how far this hole is on that right side. What does it say? It looks shorter than what I was saying.
Oh, or is that 343 or 243?
I don't think it's 343. Ain't no way.
That looks like a 2.
I'm throwing you'll see the line on this.
This is, yeah. All right. So I'll show the shot and then we can come
Yeah.
back. Look at that wide spike hyzer.
Yeah, watch it. Wait for it.
Boom.
Boom.
Right over the little hill. Yeah, and the basket was
Yeah,
just
and the
here.
basket's
Yeah.
right there. The thing was
There you go.
parked.
Nice shot.
Just a little wider. And this is something that I'm going to ask you questions about.
Okay.
So
Sweet.
yeah, I got
You
some.
want questions first or
No, I want you to talk first
all right.
because you might answer my question.
All right, let's see. I want to say something actually at this view about follow through. And I think this was something that like I found it like really confusing to understand at first, and then suddenly it all made a lot of sense to me. I think of the follow through as sort of like the after image of the shot, meaning that like the more you're trying to force a follow through, it probably means something could have been better leading into it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Same thing in tennis. We got
Yep.
bunch of stuffs that we say about follow through in tennis.
okay.
But people are like, they get so crazy about should I? Everybody, if you're a tennis person, you think about Rafa, and everybody thinks Rafa always follows through up here, like above his head, and they say like a bullwhip. But he doesn't. Sometimes he follows through here. Sometimes he follows through here. Sometimes he follows through here, right? And so does Federer, and so does everybody. And it's like, depending on the shot that you hit, like if I get a high ball up here for a topspin, I'm going to brush up on it, and then the natural follow through is going to be up here.
Yeah.
Because my swing path was going low to high to get topspin.
Yep.
Right? And if I was hitting a flat ball and it was high up here, I might go straight across my chest.
Yep.
Right? Or if I had something low that I needed to scoop and banana whip, I would go here.
Yep.
Right? And so you don't teach certain types of, you teach in the beginning, finish over your shoulder, but
Yep.
later it's like, stay loose.
Yeah.
And know that if you're loose enough, your follow through is going to finish in different places depending on where your shot went and what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
For sure. And I think I'll point out with this one, one way I kind of like simplified using the follow through as a marker of the quality of a swing. So let's talk about, like, first, the thing to know about this swing is it's an extreme spike hyzer on kind of like a shorter distance hole.
Yeah, we're going in the direction of the question I wanted to ask.
Okay. So the first thing coming from behind here, again, like pointing out what I like. I mean, same kind of shot. We've got control moving into it. We've got a pretty squared up to target. And right here, imagine kind of a diagonal line running from the disc down through the foot. It kind of depends on the anatomy a bit. Like the shoulder should load somewhere around the relative alignment of this knee. So if I came a little earlier in the swing, it would probably be loaded just about there. So the relative posture for this swing is probably close to the most powerful position by the time you're getting into the pocket here. In the follow through, let's watch where we end up.
Are you saying that is true of my swing, or
Yes.
you're saying, okay, you're saying that
so.
I'm in a
so
good
here,
position here, I'm powerfully set up to deliver the shot that I'm supposed to be delivering.
yeah. And
Why,
this is
why do you see that?
So I've got like kind of this idea of the stack where this shoulder here is in relative alignment down through this heel. So your posture's tilted, but you can imagine this kind of line of force from the shoulder down through the foot into the ground.
I got you.
And so if you were throwing something heavy,
so if my shoulder was back behind, like if my right shoulder was kind of where my left shoulder is right now, that would obviously be bad.
Yeah.
Yep. I get what
Way
you're
out
saying.
of balance, you'd be falling out of balance in the follow through and so on.
Yeah,
So
this is where you need coach's eye.
Exactly.
Just a little line, a little phew.
Yeah, I need to pick that up. So yeah, we would have had a line from there to there.
Can't, because it's out of commission now. They don't sell
really?
it anymore. Yeah, it sucks. Got to find something else.
We need something new. Arm coming nice wide, protects the shoulder. Right? We don't crimp off the swing and like have a weird angle here.
Yep.
You've got arm coming out nicely. So this is all, I think this is just like diffusing momentum. It's impossible to get 100% in the disc. So to not hurt our body, right? We want to find a position to get a good follow through. Now, the thing I wanted to point out in the follow through is, and I'll show this position in a second when I step back. There's a marker I kind of learned to use for relatively neutral, relatively flat shots to kind of benchmark are the mechanics doing well overall. So I'm going to show that.
Interesting. I'm learning the secrets here.
And I kind of really didn't understand this fully until recently, but let me see if I can get this to make some sense. So before I do this, just think about like, when we talk about like linear versus rotation, like there's long academic things you'd say. The point for me is like, I want to line up as much force toward the target as I can.
Yep.
Right. So,
and target, by the way, just for clarification, is the target line.
Yes.
Not the basket.
Correct.
For all of you people at home that saw the basket there, it's not about where the basket's at. It's about where I'm throwing the disc, the initial line out of my hand.
Yes. And that relative line should be similar regardless of the shot. You're just changing your posture.
Yep.
That's all you're doing. You're tilting your body around.
Yeah.
So you're one big like dynamic rolling thing, throwing shots. My favorite current example is Kristen Tatar for this.
Okay.
Because
we love Kristen.
How can you not? Awesome. And just like, I love what she's doing in the FPO division, and I can't wait till she comes back to just start making problems for everybody. Right.
Yeah.
So I started learning a lot from her form because I have a little bit of a hop still in my form, and she has a really, really clean feature that I'll illustrate in a second, which is whenever you watch her follow through, she's got this wonderful straight balance directly toward the target line. Yeah. So let me just kind of show in a standstill how I use that to benchmark. And the idea here is like a little baby hyzer. So like a little baby hyzer flip. This is roughly the posture I'm looking for in the follow through. And so if you imagine what we just talked about with the backswing idea, think of it like a mirror image. If I've loaded up my posture and weight correctly here, where's my camera? There we go. Then the best place for my body to end up is aligned more like this, right? My leg is still counterbalanced relatively behind me because I've brought in the highest leverage point for that throw out well ahead of my body, counterbalanced by the rear leg. And the more aligned that final posture is toward the target line, the more of that transfer of momentum I got into that disc. So if you go watch, and there's like montages of like Schusterich and Colling and a couple other players all in the follow through and like a power shot, and they'll all have this sort of coiled around position in the follow through, almost as though they've got their feet literally almost aligned directly to the target. And I just pick out Kristen because it's really, really clean and obvious in her form how she ends up in that follow through. Everybody but has it in their own way, but she's just got a very vertical posture to it. So in your example, let me just pull this back up. And then I want to point out kind of like variability in pros real quick.
Oh, hey, listen to this real quick.
What?
Well, first off, Andertz says, just soaking in all the information while hoping and waiting for one of you to slip up and give us the one fix-it-all tip.
Nice. Oh, I'm getting there.
Yeah,
it's all
here we go.
This
is the real one that's actually like really, Andertz, we love you too.
He's been waiting for it.
Tiff,
thank you, Andertz.
Tiff drops pro tip. In VLC player, you can go frame by frame by pressing E while paused. Your life has just been...
Look at how glorious the follow through looks.
So if that's E, then I wonder if like W pulls it the other way.
W is zoom apparently.
W is zoom. Is R the other way?
Should know.
No, it's gonna have to be something different.
Oh man. Well,
there's gonna be a reverse one somewhat. Tiff, what's the reverse one? What's the backwards frame button? I use the little arrows keys in YouTube all the time. You can go frame by frame in YouTube by pressing period and comma.
Yeah.
Someone says, I bet it's Q. Yeah, try Q.
Nope.
What happened?
I love that we're crowdsourcing this. Thanks,
I know. Okay, well, we've got one good one, E.
All right, cool. It doesn't support frame stepping backwards as of May 19, 2022.
Someone's saying S.
S? No.
Nope. That might be.
All right, thanks, guys. Yeah.
All right, well, we're going to stick with E because that was a great improvement,
right,
unless Tiff comes back on here and tells us what it is. Okay, so the topic of discussion is the follow-through.
Follow-through?
And something that I'm doing horribly wrong.
No, it's not like horrible, man. Yeah, it's the worst I've ever seen. No, it's pretty good. So here's the counterbalance. The leg's coming back.
Mm-hmm.
What we'd like to see is this leg is staying more behind you relative to where it ends up.
Yeah.
Now, like this changes based on the shot. So it's more likely that that's going to happen on an extreme spike hyzer like this, right? But, in general, just kind of like the more you see this off-arm counter rotation, the more everything we just talked about tightens up. Mm-hmm. That follow through becomes more and more like that over time. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially, and this is like this is the overall goal of form, right? Is to throw a disc quickly on your target line. Like if you're trying to increase distance and you can throw it 40 miles per hour towards your target line, you will throw it further if you can throw it 50 miles per hour towards that same line. And so we want parts of our body moving faster towards that, and other parts of our body are going to counterbalance in order to accelerate the other parts.
Yes.
There are parts that swing forward, and there are parts that swing backwards to help the forward swinging parts move fast, right?
Yep,
so at the end of the day, like every form piece, and this is why, athletes kind of naturally understand this, is like, it's really important to know how to throw through the line and go through the target. It's like, and the faster you can move the disc forward through your target, the further it's going to go.
Yep.
Right. So that's just kind of something I want to throw in there, because a lot of you guys are not thinking about going through the target line and further being faster forward.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like pull your hand around here and have this. It's like you got to tack that thing through. And then there's other stuff that you're kind of like pressing back in order to let you attack further through. And I just so happen to do not a great job with my counterbalancing leg, my left leg, to help me accelerate the other parts.
Yeah, and I think just to add up basically the summary of I think what we just said here was I like the leg counterbalance itself, kind of in and back. More swim through will help kind of keep that counter rotation and weight back to leverage this forward. And once that shift from behind adjusts just a little bit, what's going to happen is more of that weight is going to allow you to kind of force back off the earth and get it up the chain. And then that follow through will just kind of tighten up a bit measurably after that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And I imagine the earlier form piece that we were talking about with footwork, loading the hips is going to help me do that better.
I think for sure. Yeah.
So it's going to probably equip me better to do that as well. But here's my question.
Yeah.
Is when I throw really snappy spike hyzers, and I've noticed with, Drew, they're like, I pull that line from the disc and I finish like with the disc way out right of where my original line is. But when I do that, so let's just look at where it started.
I'm gonna grab the rear tee here.
Yeah. Use E. Our superpower.
We'll go. Whoop, wait, it was giving me some weird glitches when I did. There we go. We'll try it. It was like it only let me go.
Yeah. So look at where this thing starts. And look at where I pull it. Did I just say
way
pull?
Out here?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, look at that. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And when I look at Drew's like spike hyzers, I expect him to throw like here on my original windup. I would expect me to throw more like forward than as far right as I'm throwing. Yep. Yeah. And then Drew will do the same thing where he'll like snap it over
here.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that I'm Drew or that I'm doing it exactly as Drew's doing it. But I noticed that I can get a lot of pretty easy power if I actually open up there.
Yeah.
It's just like I was just doing it for feeling good, and I was like, whoa, I missed way right. Originally when I was trying it, I would miss like way right, but they would feel good. And I wonder what that is. I wonder if that's partly my natural inclination to not close my shoulders early enough, or if there's something there. Like, what's the deal? I just don't, like, am I lining up wrong? Like, why does it feel good there?
Well, I mean, I think part of what happens as soon as you like have to take this wide line here, and I think you're doing it, correctly because you're adjusting your posture to do that. Like you start with a little more tilt, and it launches open, and to have the disc to go in that direction, you're getting a little more pump directly up from the ground.
Yeah.
Just like, in certain backhands, you'll see Federer really push off that front leg straight up, essentially, right? And so I think to do that, just like opening your body out and up is the natural place where the shoulder wants to open in that posture.
Yeah.
And you just have a nice late grip on the disc. So you're really getting a really strong hit on it late in that arc. And then that's the place it wants to go, I think. I mean,
maybe as I'm thinking through this, maybe it's because like, how my shoulders or my hips aren't loaded enough back.
Yeah.
Maybe I swing my upper body like around to where it's to where it mimics my hips being more closed in relation to the throw.
Maybe. Yep.
It's like,
I think there's often like a little compensation.
Yeah, because that's more, my hips are more closed in reference, if you went back a couple frames, they're more closed in reference to my target line than the first throw that we saw.
Yep. So I think we're talking about right here. So we can see more of the front side of his hips.
Yeah. And with where I'm actually throwing, they're loaded in reference to where I'm throwing.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So since I yoink it out to the right, I actually almost weight shift from behind accidentally.
Yeah, that's a good way
because
to say it,
of
I
where
think.
my
Yep.
butt's facing here and where I yoink the line over.
Yeah, I bet that's why you feel like subjectively why you're getting more power out of it too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I'm actually doing. Yeah, it's not like correct. I don't think, but maybe that's what it was.
I mean, pretty close. Like, yeah, like this actually, it's a little hard to tell if like in the montage with Gibson, like every once in a while there's a yank in a throw, even in pros. But some of those more extreme hyzers do have that same profile.
Yeah.
And you can clearly see like his butt's like if you take a still frame, it's
Uh-huh.
close to the line of play.
Yeah, like
That's where his
where he starts on some of those, and where he finishes, it's like, oh, he's gonna finish here. Whoa,
Yeah.
he finished later, and so
Yeah.
it's like almost his hits more behind him.
Yep. Yes. And so like you just right here, this is a great example.
Yeah,
Hits are aiming this
like
way.
if I was weight
but-
shifting from behind from this position, it would go to where I'm throwing.
Yep. Yep.
That's interesting.
Yep. So, and just to show, there it is, right? So the butt was pointing at almost the same
Yeah.
angle there.
That's why it feels good.
Yep.
Because okay. Because it's like forcing myself to wait for the butt to go. I just oriented incorrectly.
Yeah. There you go. So yeah, I mean, I think that's interesting, and why I too had this weird experience where like, why are my spike hyzers like towering and far compared to every other shot?
Yeah.
I think it was because we were both bumping into the same thing, and it's
Yeah.
just about like, how do I get it into the rest of my throws?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all in that loading phase.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because like I don't know how high this screen is looking, but you see trees, and yeah, they're on the downslope, and my disc is
sure.
nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
Look at that. It's gonzo.
And there we go.
And there it is. That's a Firebird.
Yeah.
And it's just like up there and easy. So
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would just go ahead and like, I don't know how you're advising people these days. Like if you haven't just done field work with spike hyzers, I found it like automatically gets you connected to this sort of like pendulum power stroke, right?
Yeah.
And then the hard part is like, how do I get my body to learn how to do that on more level trajectories? And you can work on adjusting your posture to do that.
Yeah. Yep.
And they have more fun follow through too, right? You're like kind of got the skyward victory shot. So.
Yeah, on the follow through conversation, it's interesting for me to think about like Drew's Anheuser shots. Like I'll finish like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes where he's like on that right toe and he like sprawls up that leg and he's like leaning out like some kind of crazy person.
Yep.
But obviously he's doing it correctly.
Sure.
So it's interesting that the hips and like where you finish on your feet and stuff like that is also just a natural outcome of doing of whatever your form is.
Yeah. And I think too, like, one way to think about it in yours is like, you've got such a strong upper body chain that you have to have your weight forward to benefit from that chain. But because you didn't have quite the loading on the drive side, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're carrying actually a little too much power through on the other side of the throw.
Yeah.
But once you trap that, right, that's going to be
right.
some work for you, I think. Yeah, so that's all very cool in what we see here. Yeah, so I mean, those are the big main notes that were sticking out to me. I mean, it sounds like you had a handle on pretty much all of them, but I'm hoping that people are finding this useful to call out some of these things.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's all very interesting. Alrighty. So what do you want to do? Let's see. What time is it? 7:17. What time do we start this bad boy? 5:30-ish?
5:30-ish. You mentioned a different clip. We could just wrap up with some form chat or questions.
Yeah. So can you pull up the let me find which one it is, but it's the old one, not my drives in the field today. What am I looking for? Why did I go there? Hiya, let me find out what it is. I think it's image 2545.
Was this put in the
It
same
is.
Dropbox?
It's in our Google Drive.
All right. Aha, it's snowy. This is nice.
2545. This is a long time ago. I'm interested. I haven't looked at this in forever.
Was this months or how long ago again?
This was probably over a year ago.
Nice. All right, here we go. Let me screen share this.
And I'm probably throwing, if I didn't throw that as a huge spike hyzer off the tee, probably the shot that I'm throwing this like year ago is shorter
Okay.
than what I just threw that we just analyzed.
All right, here, let's just watch it a couple times.
Oh yeah. I hadn't seen it in so long. Oh yeah. Oh no.
Feeling a little differently about yourself? Yeah.
Oh man. It's important to see just how bad it was. Let's use the E key here.
All right. Where do you want to hone in
Just
here?
start from the beginning.
All
There are
right,
not
man.
many frames, I don't think. This is perfect. Dude.
I'm going to scroll a little bit faster just to... All right. So we got eyes on the target. We're kind of similar-ish approach in your X step. I saw a couple things right off the cuff that are worth pointing out.
Yeah. Look how I dropped the right hip already.
Yeah, so that's kind of sagging a little bit rather than getting...
Uh-huh. Here I've got
Cross
positive.
is a little bigger.
Yeah.
Hey, where's your hero arm?
Where's my who?
Where's the superhero?
I have no idea, dude.
Whoa. So we learned to fly since last time. That's good. All right.
I was probably working specifically at this time on not doing that.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, you got your elbow in there.
Oh,
A lot of
baby.
forward tilt.
Oh, baby.
Yeah, you really figured out action with the upper body. So like I wanted to point out real quick, like you can see like Kale Viska and other players have this like more pronounced tilt,
Yeah.
right, into the hit and follow through. I'm still not exactly sure how to think about that, but like it can be functional, I guess, is the bottom line. So it's like you figured out how to get some power through that, but then the follow through again is like the telling image. You know, you've got a lot coming straight forward through the body.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I wanted to just say, you were talking about that like wings behind, the eagle wings.
So that's closer to how I would finish with the one-hand backhand in tennis, like with my arms that kind of close together.
Yeah, so
You see full spread?
Yep.
And I feel, and so obviously what we can pull from this is that it is in part to the size of my left arm move currently. Of why I'm not getting a full opening of the shoulders, because this is not bad shoulder flexibility.
And here's your swim. Watch it counter rotate.
Yeah, that's a tennis thing.
Yep, there's your tennis, and yep, there's your swim move.
Yep.
So I guess here
it's
you're
there.
coming in,
I just neglected my left arm. I'm just not looking at the left arm right now.
and like some people put like a lot of stock into that off arm way early. And I think that is often a problem if you don't already have like your legs under you. Right.
Yeah.
Like if you put too much effort into that arm, you're going to like have it in a weird position by the time you figure the other stuff out. And most people end up getting like way off axis or something.
Right. Yeah. My teaching has morphed a little bit. I used to go right arm, then left arm, or like lead arm, then off arm, then footwork.
Yeah.
Now I'm like lead arm or footwork first.
Yeah.
And it depends on who I'm talking to, which one is first, and then off arm is currently last in how I'm teaching things.
Okay. What do you think about like, starting just like try to keep it tucked to keep the shoulders in?
Yeah, just like put it in my pocket, like Paul McBeth style.
Yeah, like don't
I've
reach
thought
for
about
anything. Don't
I think probably before that. Yeah, like maybe Old Eagle. Like I'll switch to demonstration here, but maybe just start here like this. You're saying?
Yep.
Because I have this from tennis.
You want to swim that? Yeah, I could see that immediately.
Yeah, I've got that from tennis for sure.
Okay.
So
yeah, and
it's just a matter
recently,
of making sure it doesn't go back. So I'll play with it either by keeping the left hand on or sticking the. At this point, I probably was looking at just like keeping the left hand in my pocket or something to start.
Yep.
I'm not sure, But this is kind of cool because I know, like, oh, okay, that's right. I used
just
to
gotta
be able
find
to
it
be
again.
decent on this. I just gotta go back and revisit. It just broke a little bit.
Yeah.
So, but
Well, that's the other thing, I thought we could mention, right, is like even the top pros, there's drift in their form
right,
over time. Yeah.
yeah, and there's like their form's probably going to be the best at the beginning of the season, and
Yeah.
then it'll get worse and worse as the season goes on. Fatigue, they weren't just practicing for their whole off season, stuff like that. But yeah.
Yep. They've
And then
got
you
like
visit stuff, and you
aches,
just trust that when you go back to whack the mole later, it's going to be a little easier.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So yeah, I'd like to think there's a bit of a ride the bike phenomenon there, but it still needs practice to get tuned
right.
up,
Man, look at that sinking on the front.
And so looking for your counterbalance, still counterbalance. Yeah. I just, a lot of weight got really far forward way early.
Yeah.
Oh, and here, this is interesting. So
Yeah,
your
the tilt.
posture, yeah. You don't have as much of a curve here. You're kind of pulling your head back against your spine a little bit.
Right.
So that's kind of trapping this weight forward, and you're not getting quite as much power through the whole body.
Yeah, for anybody who might have just joined, by the way, this is my old form. This is like over a year old. So I've worked on stuff since then. And I've definitely packed on easier distance since then, for sure. So.
Yeah, and I think I just have to guess that even at the same distance, yeah, you felt more effort when throwing like this.
Yeah, this was like me. I wanted this thing to go.
Yeah. Well, and maybe one thing worth mentioning, because some people then point out, like, well, wait a minute, like pros sometimes do carry through forward and around. The way I learned to think of that is like, yes, and the less of that happens, the more efficiency there was in the shot and diffusing the momentum. And so at a certain point,
right.
There's like diminishing returns. Your strongest, most powered shot is going to take more around and through, but learning to kind of keep it as tight and compact and oriented to the target as possible, the line of play, the better.
Yeah, it's super interesting if you just go and watch where Simon and Drew finish up, even on their like 450 foot or above shots, that their head and their body weight never gets to where my leg in my head are in reference to my lead foot. Doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You might, and it looks usually at like the 450-ish range. If they are carrying it through, they still got like a lot of the balance over that leading leg.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of
it's like very balanced once they do get on there. And it's in their follow through when they're like arms going back behind.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, then they finally kind of, okay, they're propped up on it after the disc has gone like 300 feet through the air.
Yep.
Yep. It's like way down there. It's farther than your disc will ever fly before they get in that position.
That's right. Yep.
So yeah.
So that's what we aspire to.
Cool. All right, guys, hit us up with some questions.
Yeah, please.
Because we're about to wrap this baby up, unless you had anything else that you wanted to talk about, John.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to talk all night, but like, I think, well, maybe just one thing about like coming back to expectations and growth.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody, Josh and I, we have limited time to do stuff. Like I have much more time to make like.
You want to stop the screen share real quick?
Yeah, sure. I always have more time. There they are.
There they are.
I'm a little fogged up from my glasses, but all right, you can see my eyes. Yeah. So like, don't bite off more than you can chew. Don't be me in the sense of like on the pro side, I did a lot of changes that really benefited my overall form, but I didn't sort of expand that over a longer period of time to smooth certain things out. And there are some physical consequences to that. And so one thing is like, I hate it. It's straight and true. The earlier question is like, what's the one fix to get it all? It's a lot of little things, right, over a long period of time. And unfortunately for most of us, that's true. And I have seen people that learn to throw really far that are just clearly going to be harming their bodies in the long run. And so like my personal philosophy, especially coming like in my mid 30s at the game, not, early in life, is like, how can I push all my limits up indefinitely, but keep playing as often as I'd like? So I had a little bit of a come to reckoning the last couple of weeks myself, where I was like, okay, you pushed a little too hard for too long. like spread it out a little better. So that's lesson 1 for me. And then lesson 2 is just like, everybody has something to learn. I think that, this idea of like perfect form is really interesting to me, because like, I think you see all the pros at the highest level generally doing the same things with their body and like the core mechanics, but there's a lot of variation, obviously. Right. And so like every pro probably has some adjustments they could make to either reduce some effort or increase their distance or consistency a bit, which is part of why they're always kind of tooling and retooling a little bit, right, on the fly. And that's suggested to me that like, as the sport grows, I wonder if we're going to start seeing more like high level coaching where people are like, no, I need 2 more miles per hour arm speed to compete with, Gibson next year. So I don't know, Josh, if you would put thought to that, but I've been thinking a lot of that recently.
Well, yeah. So a few things is there are like styles. There are things that work. Like you look at tennis, and again, you look at Roger and you look at Rafa. And if you just like take snippets of them, like you will find them in the same positions. And you'll be like, wow, this is exactly the same form. And then you see all the in-betweens. And it's like, okay, Rafa gets more spin on the ball, which means that he actually swings a little more up on most shots than Fed does. Fed's a little flatter, his grip's a little different, all these things. Just like you'll see with Simon. Simon gets more spin on the disc than basically everyone else. So you're going to see, like, in the pocket, you're going to see Simon curled like crazy. Because, which way do I got to go? Curled like crazy. And so that's going to come out in different ways. That's going to change how his follow-through is, right? Because of where that's going to change how the disc came in, how the disc came out. And then there's going to be all these little, like, stylistic things that flow from that. And some people are just going to have more flexible wrists that will allow them to get more spin. Some people are going to, just like in baseball, some guys, the way that their wrists are curved and built, can throw a curveball way easier than a slider. And so you've got like pronators and supinator pitchers, basically. And so the form is going to be stylistically a little different. But the mechanics, they're going to, basically be loading their hips back as they take that step forward. That's going to be consistent. Until we are a young sport, there might be changes that we see in like options basically for those fundamentals that say, okay, this will give a little bit of extra juice, right? You'll have not everybody needs to bring the racket up anymore. Some guys bring it here and it's like here and then they go through much more flat. Some guys come way around, and then there are principles that stay the same, and then the flavors change a little bit. But, yeah. And so just know with your form, you're gonna have the same thing. Learn the fundamentals, learn the principles that can give you healthy power, and then give your body time to learn how it's different. So
yeah. And again, like just be me sensitive to workload and stress. Josh and I had this chat the other day about like, there's something about disc golf. I don't know what the heck it is, but the people that want to get better will just do it forever, right? You'll go to the field and throw and throw and throw and throw and throw. And it's just something rewarding about seeing the disc fly and hitting the ground, whatever it is. And like, just like pitch counts in the MLB, if you threw max effort all the time, you'd be destroying your body at that kind of volume, right? And so I just, like in my case, fortunately, I was never really at that kind of volume, but I was close enough at how frequently I was doing things that I started getting little like stress build up, right? And that's this longer term effect I'm talking about. Like literally you can look at the science and say, John, you've had 6 months of neuromuscular programming and muscle growth. Your other soft tissues need another 6 months to get used to all that force. So in a way, like you grow as your body grows, literally, like you just kind of get used to the reps, right? Some of you coming in, like we talked about, and your bodies are more resilient in certain ways. I'm a very like novice to throwing amateur in that sense. Literally, it's just time. It's time and reps over a long period of time. So when I do distance shots, I've learned to like, if I'm really doing distance work, long warm up, right? I'm scaling up through the session, right? I start with approach shots, kind of go middle distance. And then I ask myself, is my body feeling like rhythmic enough and fluid enough to try to up the juice? And if it doesn't, upshot day. That's great. Great for my game, right? If I'm feeling good, yeah, I'm going to try and yeet some discs. I'm going to test the limits. I'm usually not doing like full sends more than once a week, even when I'm feeling really good. I'm mostly like in the middle range, like working on tempo and control personally. I don't know, Josh, how you've thought about that, but
No, I'm the same way. Your body needs rest when it needs rest. Listen to your body. Be smart. Consult your physician. But it's just I got injured coming back into tennis and going 5-6 days a week. 1,000 balls on the ball machine, and it wasn't until a couple months later, and I was a nut job about it, and then I really wrecked my ankle. So, just you're gonna have to work through that. And unfortunately, as coaches, all we could say is use common sense and be careful because there's somebody else you got to talk to for that. And we don't want you getting hurt or anything, of course, but it's like it's tough if you don't have kind of that common sense from other sports built in, where you'd already talk to and listen to trainers from other sports. So yeah, I'll get into some of these comments over here. We got some questions. Over 40 maxing at 320, trying to ease into distance without hurting anything and coming from ultimate background. Tips to avoid injury and reasonable expectations for 40 plus. Again, we are not physicians, but I think smooth, listen to your body, warm up, all the things that you probably already know, right? And anything that's herky-jerky and, stepping straight out of the car and trying to throw, your PR, probably not the move.
Yeah. I think another way I think about that is you can go literally find world distance records for certain age categories. And I learned about like the 40 plus numbers because I was working with somebody that is 47, better levers than me, right? Like he's got longer arms than his height. It's like 6'2" with 6'4" arms, basically. Athletic background, like it's clear his body gets some power on it that I'll just never have, right? And so it was interesting because we had this conversation about expectations, and I pointed out, I was like, look, like if you look at Masters Worlds, the best shots, meaning like the max distance shot for that person in a max distance competition, are just clearing 500 feet. And these guys have probably been playing their entire life, right? So just kind of like, that's reasonable to me to just kind of say like, it's okay to assume yours is going to probably be far short of that, especially early on, unless you've got like really, a robust background and all that. And even if you're very athletic, the difference in the ultimate players I've talked to and kind of work with, my brother-in-law being one of them, moving to disc golf, it's still not quite the same like high impact hit point problem, right? There's a lot of force coming through a disc on a true distance shot. And this is the kind of like resilience problem I'm talking about. Your body literally needs to build up tissue to handle that. It's not a form issue, it's a body issue. So one thing I like to kind of work with, and I do this in my own field work now to like rein myself in because, I was athletic in other domains and I really want to push it and I got to rein myself in. I literally march my distance shots by 15 feet at a time. I just say like, I'm going to literally put my target in the same spot, march back, and I focus on the effort, not the distance. And I reach that distance with the same amount of effort or less. And the more I do that, man, I can't tell you, it's not just the distance, but the game overall is so much better. The better my short team game gets is my best metric for how well I'm doing, frankly, right? It's like I can like get there with no effort more and more of the time. That's what I'm focused on personally. And the distance comes, it really does. And you don't notice it. It's just suddenly they're going farther over time.
Yeah. Mikey does a good job of keeping me in check on this, but he's like, dude, you just got to remember, like, when people sign up for a sport, like, injuries happen.
Yeah.
The best people in tennis get injured. It's like, you can't point to a form thing that's like, oh, that's why they're injured. Their form's great, but Rafa's playing tennis and it takes a toll on his body.
Grueling. Yeah. That much tennis like at that level.
You're beating your body. There's impact here. When you throw that disc properly, you're going to get hurt eventually. Somebody's going to get hurt eventually. So.
Yeah. And so sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. That's just part of sports. Injuries are a part of sports, and you try to avoid them, and you do everything that a physio tells you to do to try to avoid it, and you try to do everything you can in your form work to try to avoid it. But even in that, the best form of players and the best players in the game will still get injured.
Yeah. And so, I mean, for me, a principle of learning kind of under that style of thinking, like I expected, stress issues. I expect, pain point issues because I want to grow and I'm not getting younger. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I just respond to my body much more seriously than I used to. That's kind of my principle. Like this week is the example where I was like, it's sending me some warning signals. I'm not hurt yet. I will be if I don't take a good couple of weeks just to let stuff sink in. Right. So that's one thing. I also want to say, like, there's nothing wrong with like an 80% or effort less game. Like, I think there's a lot right about that. And I think, unfortunately we all see these pros blasting discs and just like, look, they often have anatomical advantages. They often have athletic advantages, and they certainly have training advantages, not just the time and the reps, but they've been around other pros for a long time. Right. So, like, again, just kind of like if that's a long goal for you, I think that's awesome. I have high goals for myself. I just know it's going to take time and even longer because I can't put every day in with, lots of pros around me to be picking stuff up.
Yeah. And the thing is the holes are getting harder and longer. Yes. Right. And so
fast too. Yeah.
It's not like pros want to put the amount of effort that they're putting into every shot.
And they tell us that. Yeah.
They tell us that. Yeah. They absolutely tell us that. You can hear it from pros when they have to throw these forehands, and every forehand shot that they throw now has to be 400 foot. It's like, dude, they don't want to have to throw 400 foot forehand after 400 foot forehand, but they cannot give up the stroke by throwing a backhand there. They cannot give up the percentage play there. And so in order to get paid and to eat, they're going to go through that, right? You don't have to go through that. You don't have to have that just because they're doing it, right? Yeah. Especially as a recreational player. It's like, don't expect to do what pros do, and pros don't even always want to be doing what they're doing in terms of the physical beat down that they're putting on their body sometimes.
Yeah, and we're already seeing it. A lot of the top players going down from injuries in one way or another. And it's kind of I'm worried that rate is just going to be pretty high by the end of even the season, because you just see how long the courses are getting.
Right. Yeah. And this is a shout out to course designers. Build courses that are difficult, not just because of length.
Yeah. So, I don't know how you felt, Josh, but I watched a lot of the coverage from Portland. And, certainly long holes, but I was really impressed by what they did with like just the 400 footers, which for a lot of the pros, that's not a lot of effort for them, but they still had to have a good technical line.
What was that 200 foot hole that had the OB right around the basket? It was like a 200 foot putter shot for most people, 200 something. It was like, that's great. Like, you should have to think about what you're throwing there.
Yeah.
And
I'm just remembering, Josh, I saw your video with Simon when you played that round. And I think he said something to you to the effect of like, oh no, like I only play the short tees myself when I come here.
Yeah.
Right? And so like, there's just a lot of joy and a lot to learn about the game, I think, in that too.
Yeah. Simon's perfect for the sport because he wants to see courses that are, not just every tee shot being a driver. Like, you should have to worry about the speed that your disc is coming in. Should you use a mid or a fairway driver? Like, you should have to be having those kind of things in all the different shot shapes. And Simon's a master of shot shaping. So it's yeah.
Yeah, I want to one plug for Distance Hounds, and then let me know if we have other questions.
Plug for who?
The Distance Hounds.
Oh, yeah.
So the people who want distance, whatever your age, I do want to say on the bright side, like, you can throw farther than you can now. Like, I think that applies to everybody. And I think, but on the flip side of this conversation, I actually found it and still find it a little frustrating when people just kind of assume like, oh, everybody is really only going to be a 300 foot thrower unless they're gifted. I think that's just patently false. I mean, if I can get my janky, short limbed, slightly overweight body, right, up into that 400 regime with lots of practice and effort, and make that effort lower, right? So notwithstanding my recent, overwork experience, I got to say, like, I never thought I'd be able to throw shots that far with as little effort as it felt like. Right. And so again, that's the positive side, where like a lot of work in my case, because I had relative disadvantages, but you know, I don't know what the number is for any given person, but it's higher than where it is now.
Right.
So
Yeah. I'm hearing 400 now is like the new 300. It's like, oh,
is that what it's becoming now?
yeah,
It's like
yeah. People are
everybody's
like,
got.
oh, you know, with good form, anybody should be able to throw 400. But yeah.
What do you think about that figure?
I think the figure is probably, well, it's so hard to say. I think
Yeah.
350 for sure. You know, get the right disc. You know, I feel like if anybody had a sail in their hand and they can snap it out to 350, you know,
Sure.
with decent form.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right disc, high glide, little flippy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me bust through some of these questions real quick.
Let's do it.
Claw Shooter says, I have a neurological condition that mimics ALS, where my left side, I'm going to say this slowly so that I can get it right. Fasciculations.
Yeah.
Is the swim move required, or can I work without it?
Josh, do you have a reaction?
I think that's one of those pieces, like we have parts of the body that move forward and parts that move backwards, right? The swim move gets the shoulder going backwards, the left shoulder, if you're a righty, it starts opening up those shoulders, and it, you know, basically propels the right arm faster.
Yeah.
So is it required? No. Is it more ideal? Yes.
Yeah.
But the thing is if you can't do it, you can't do it. So work on what you can work on. It's like, I can't be 6'4", so I better work on something else.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And I mean, you know, remember gradations. I thought Josh's form review here was a great example where, like, you saw one example earlier where he had the swim and the other where it was more just elbow tuck. So there's a gradation. If you can get some elbow tuck, great. If even just like the tucking of the elbow is hard, just making sure the shoulder stays kind of forward. The key there, remember, is like you want to be kind of compacted into the swing. You don't want to like drag if possible.
Yeah, there's like kind of there's like, okay, in the beginning it's hurting you. It's like pulling you back when you're trying to move forward. And then there's like, okay, it's not helping you accelerate the lead shoulder, but it's not really hurting you either. And then it's helping you, right? So there's always gradation, like you're saying. I love that. Okay, how do you think form comes into play in smaller guys like myself and Keith and Ford versus Simon Calvin? And does smaller size length play into power? Thanks. Love the content. Then he has a follow-up. He says, or can you do a form review of a smaller person versus a larger person, and what would the difference versus expectations be?
That's cool.
Yeah, of course, taller is better. I think you see that in a lot of sports. It's like David Ferrer, 5'8". He was the only guy in the top 50 that was 5'8".
Yeah.
For a long time. And I think he milked absolutely everything that he could have milked out of his career. Because when you're John Isner serving, it's a lot easier to get power moving forward into the box because you don't have to spin it up, right?
Yep.
Longer levers, of course, makes a difference. But there are downsides, right? Shorter guys can move those levers more quickly. Just in general. This is me kind of pseudo-guessing from my tennis background. But taller guys can generate a lot of power from their long levers, but they're not as quick around the court, right? So someone like Emerson Keith, I bet you that guy's pretty quick. I bet you he can generate a lot of speed from his footwork and learn to put that up the body. Yeah. Versus someone that's taller, they're going to go a little more slowly down the tee pad, but they're going to have longer moves.
Yeah.
Which will allow them more time to build up speed. And then if you can get someone that has more time to build up speed and has the ability to be quick, then that's it, right? You can only have so much time to build up speed if you're short. Yep. You've got whatever your arm length is or whatever your hip load length is, etc. So
I think, and just to add there, you know, like the ratios even within that really matter. So part of, I was curious earlier about Josh's wingspan to height. Like, so think about it as like the longer the levers at the end, the better. There's this little GIF I love to share with people. But Paul Macbeth can palm an entire disc in his hand. His huge hands. He's only like what, 5'8"?
Yeah,
his arms
he's my
are
height.
very long.
Maybe.
Yeah. If you can, try to pull it up. His arms are very long.
Yeah, I cannot palm it in my hand.
Like not even close.
Well,
right? Like
I'm
getting kind of to the edge. Yeah, I'm around where you are, right?
Yeah.
So long levers at the end, really long arms, really long forearms. I don't know what his wingspan is, but it's huge relative to his height. Gibson, positive wingspan to height, right? Shoulders, narrower shoulders to longer arms are better, right? So like if I had to pick a body type for a disc golfer that you wouldn't want to emulate, it would be me, but shorter. I'm 6'1". My wingspan's a little shorter than my height.
You're
and my
6'1"?
Yeah.
Dang.
I'm a stumpy guy though. I've got little T-Rex arms, right? My shoulders are like 3 inches wider than they should be. So like I'm built like a draft animal. So to me, like a weird motivation, I was like, look, I got like short little levers. I got to find a whip as much as possible. So I spend so much time on form, like trying to milk out what I can, basically. But yeah, I would say that on the flip side, like that's the thing, right? Like obviously, no matter your height, the better the mechanics, the better you're going to do. So, don't give up. If you're like on a different end of that spectrum, we're all somewhere on it.
I'm not 6. I'm 5'8", brother. You're 6'1".
That's perfect. Well, we had found the Macbeth arms.
It would be perfect if I were fast, right?
Yeah, let's get that.
But I'm short and slow.
Let's get that quickness training. We need to like the plyo.
Yeah, there's a lot to be done with explosiveness, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's something Mikey harps on a bunch, and I think he's 100% right. It's
Mikey
like at some point you just got to be explosive.
Yeah.
Like you just got to we've got a guy that we did our form reviews last time, and his form looks great, and it's like, dude, your form, there's really, maybe this itsy bitsy thing, but dude, go faster. That's it. You graduated from form reviews. Now learn how to explode, because he's like near perfect form, 320, 330, something like that. And it's like, dude, get off of here.
Too deliberate, too gentle. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, go explode, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, sometimes you just got to try to go faster.
Yeah. And that's where a lot of that comes in. It's just like, when you're going for distance stuff, it's just like, you just got to be quicker.
Yep.
You just got to be faster. Efficient, inefficient. If you go faster, bad form, good form. If you go faster and you get that disc moving faster, it will go further.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't throw a disc with the same amount of spin in more speed and have it land shorter than the other.
Yeah.
If everything else were the same, you just threw it faster. It's like,
it's like the diminishing effort returns are just worse the worse the form is, right? You can, that's why you can strong muscle out a disc to a certain point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Form just increases the ceiling. Doesn't mean you're going to throw further. It just gives you the opportunity. It gives you what you need to throw further. It just takes the limiters off. But you still got to put some energy into the equation.
Yeah. And that's another point where, like, as things have gotten recently much better overall for my better form swings, like after rest and recovery, I know I'm just going to have to work to throw faster, and that has a different balance, right? Your strides change, your posture changes. So like, again, like at a certain point, thrown in your basement, like I spend a lot of time doing, like, I got to be out in the field too. Mm-hmm. It's all part of the package.
Yeah. Yep. All righty. I think that's going to wrap it up, and I'm going to get out of Mikey's house now.
He's letting you squat the entire evening.
Well, all the computer stuff's at his place, so anything I do, I got to do over here.
Nice.
We keep rolling, and he just like goes to bed or something.
You just find him later. All right.
Yeah. So no, I think we covered a lot of amazing stuff, and this isn't the first time we're gonna, and the first and last time we're gonna do this. It is the first time. It's not the last time we're gonna do it. I'm sure we'll talk more, and we'll get more people on, and definitely plans for a nice little podcast to start up and get some more conversations like this happening on the coaching side with others. We got a lot of coaches out there, and a lot of us, you guys don't know, but most of us talk to each other in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
You know, and there aren't that many coaches out there, but there are more than I think people realize. So it's nice for us all we're all looking through and trying to figure out what in the world is best for you guys. I think most of the coaches out there, I can sincerely say that most of the coaches out there are like John here, where it's like he has found a lot of value in how Seabass taught him and how he's learned, and it's helped his game out tremendously, and he just wants to share what he knows.
Yeah.
So, and we want to be able to have some of these conversations out in the open with you guys. So there's some stuff that you guys can't hear yet because it's secret, and it would
Absolutely.
blow your minds, and you'd start throwing 500 feet, and we don't want that. So
He had me sign an NDA at the beginning that I cannot disclose any of that. So that.
yeah, we basically cracked the code.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I would say echo, this is awesome. And I'm glad that you, Josh, have had such a leadership position in this and push out just awesome content at what seems like a endless constant basis, which is great for the whole community. I love these questions. I love hearing what other people want to think about or what confuses them or what debates, they feel like should exist in coaching or form. I'm obviously, as you can tell, a form nerd here as much as I'd like to coach people to be better. So,
yeah. And I think most of us are. I mean, especially Seabass. That guy's ridiculous.
I got to say,
the most knowledgeable.
Yeah. I think when it comes down to has anyone understood the mechanics of how it works? I think he has it.
He takes the cake. He takes it.
I think
we joke about him sometimes, and we'll give him some love. But I joke sometimes because it's like I could ask him a question about anything in disc golf form related wise, and maybe outside of form. I haven't asked him any non-form questions, have I? I don't know, but I could be like, how far would a giraffe throw a tomahawk if it could, And then he'd be like, yeah, I studied that 8 years ago. Here's the video on it, and the video is titled, Giraffe-a-hawk.
Yeah. And the number of tomahawk and giraffe videos cross-indexed, right, would be very high.
Yeah. Yeah. Time-stamped, prepared, ready for us.
Yeah.
So he's just so knowledgeable, and he really, comes out from a place of wanting to help others. So,
yeah.
And I've come to, John knows that better than me because John spent way more time with him.
Yeah. And I mean, again, I think like Josh does, there's a big value as the sports grows in the coach knowledge base and implementation. And I think that that's important to legitimize in a lot of ways too. And so, I pass goodwill to Seabass because I really value what he's done and continues to do for me. And I think, we're at an interesting time. I think a lot of the information is there, but figuring out how to get a particular person from here to there is just, as we all know, a really tough challenge. And so right. I respect what, Josh is putting together here. Yeah.
It's the coaching aspect of it. It's how do you communicate that so that people start doing it? I think that's the trick.
Yeah. And we all keep learning more there as time goes on for sure.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna call this bad boy. If you guys have not done so, it helps the stream big time if you like it. That's how YouTube knows to send it out to other peeps. So it would be really awesome, and I would really appreciate it if you just real quick in these next 3 seconds just click that bad boy. And then right after I stop this stream, or no, not after. Right now, right click in the description of the stream. You will see John's YouTube channel, Aceitdiscgolf. Send him some love. I love how he has put together modules. He's done it like a professor. And it's a way that I'm not prepared to do it yet. And he's just got that teaching mind to where it's very step by step, and I love it. I wish I would have done it.
Well, I think, again, complimentary. And I want to say thanks, Josh, for inviting me in the shout out. And, For my channel, stay tuned. Of course, like any coach and teacher, I'm looking back at what I put up there and I'm like, man, I could have done that a lot better based on what I know. So it'll be updating it whenever I can give attention.
Oh yeah,
to it.
I've unlisted my fair share of videos on our channel.
Yeah.
I don't know how people.
happens.
Sometimes I get a random comment. Somebody will find. I'm like, how did you find this thing, bro? Why are you commenting? I unlisted it for a reason.
But they're like, I know one time you said this.
Where is this link out there, bro? I'm trying to bury this thing. So,
awesome.
Yeah. All right, John.
Okay.
I'll catch you later, brother. This was awesome.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Have a good night. Thanks.
Peace.
Later.